Chapter 1393. Chen Wanxiang was sure that, given Li Wuxiang's personality, once he found out that Shi Chao's disciples had been killed by Fatty and the others, he'd be furious. Moreover, he'd definitely ask the disciples of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm to get back at them. Thinking of this, Chen Wanxiang returned to the Grotto Heaven and instructed Murong Qianhua, Si Xian, and the others. 23rd place, Parkway Academy. Buzz. Not long after, the core of the arena once again rose with a dazzling light. At this moment, Chen Hao's eyes suddenly lit up, and his expression revealed uncontrollable excitement and excitement. Damn, Parkway Academy has so many beauties? No way, they're so beautiful. Fuck beauties 1 to 3. Fuck, I'm dazzled. Could it be that the disciples of the Jade Maiden Palace have joined Parkway Academy? When the disciples of Parkway Academy stepped out of the Myriad Dao spatial core and appeared in front of the cultivators for the first time, all the disciples in the Grotto Heavens and cultivators in the Immortal World space who were watching the competition widened their eyes in shock. It wasn't that Parkway Academy's disciples were too strong. After all, they were only 23rd, and there weren't any outstanding disciples. However, the shock they caused was greater than any of the other academies and factions. The reason was that there were more than 20 beauties in a team of less than 100 people. This ratio was a little too exaggerated. After all, in every academy's top 100, the number of male disciples was already an absolute advantage. Having a dozen or so women was already pretty good. But Parkway Academy actually had nearly 40 women. Even more terrifying was that there were nearly 20 stunning beauties among the 10 or so. This made the male disciples of the other academies envious. Countless praises drifted out. Beauties, super beauties. Fuck, fatty bro, the contract is up. We'll choose Parkway Academy for the last time. Ling Feng said. That's right. Fatty bro, for the happiness of our brothers, you have no reason to object, right? Ao Qian said. A bunch of hooligans. Xue Fian and Wan Yishui said disdainfully when they saw Ao Qian, Ling Feng, and especially Fatty, who was even more excited than the other two. Actually, the most important thing was that he despised the Fatty. He clearly had two Taoist companions by his side, yet he dared to act so excited. Wasn't it just beauties? However, to Wan Yishui and Xue Fian's surprise, Si Xian was also staring at the Parkway Academy's beauties with sparkling eyes. She excitedly gripped the Fatty's hand tightly. Harder. What the hell was going on? Wan Yishui and Xue Fian were confused. Not a single one is missing. Very good. Long time no see, each of you has become even more alluring, hee. A smile appeared on the Fatty's excited face, and his eyes became extremely intoxicating. This scene made Wan Yishui and Xue Fian even more confused. What kind of look was that? Words couldn't describe it, but she had a feeling that being stared at like this was definitely a kind of happiness for a woman. In short, it had nothing to do with sex. Most of them are your sisters-in-law, except for a few. Don't even think about it. What Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Wan Yishui, and Xue Fian didn't expect was Chen Hao's reply. No way, right? Brother Fatty, you're too domineering. You eat the meat, and we brothers drink the soup, okay? Furthermore, Dao companions, even if we're brothers, we should compete fairly. That's right, Brother Fatty. All right, they all followed me to the great world of Xiandi. It's not that I want to snatch them from you, but that you don't even have the chance to snatch them. They're already my Dao companions, the Fatty said proudly. If you don't believe me, ask Si Xian. This time, it was Ao Guang and Ling Feng's turn to be dumbfounded. When Chen Shui, Heli and Wuzi, and the others returned to the Parkway Academy's Grotto Heaven, they received news that Chen Hao had already returned from the Emperor's Star Mystic Realm. Furthermore, they saw the image of the Fatty stepping out of the Myriad Dao space, as well as his name on the leaderboard. The girls were naturally excited, and their hearts were filled with pride. They looked forward to the end of the ranking competition. As expected, the Tanglong Academy won the 94th place with their huge advantage at the beginning. However, the moment the Tanglong Academy's disciples stepped out of the Myriad Dao's space, Li Wuxiang fell to the ground with a plop, his face pale. He was faintly worried that something impossible would happen, but it actually happened. Shi Chao wasn't here. After Li Wuxiang understood what had happened from the disciples who came out, his expression became even more ugly. He rushed to Cheng Wanxiang in anger, wanting to take back Shi Chao's godhead. Unfortunately, Cheng Wanxiang rejected him without hesitation, blocking him outside the door of the Dehua Academy's grotto heaven. Li Wuxiang, who was angry out of humiliation, said, "Just you wait," and left in a huff, returning to the Tanglong Academy's grotto heaven. Under the powerful space-time laws, the Daluo Golden Wonderland's team competition ended in a short time. It was the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's team competition. It was also the Myriad Dao space, but the difference was that the laws were condensed for the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's cultivators. You must be careful. Ding Ling is one of Li Wuxiang's proudest disciples. You already know how powerful she is. If you encounter her, don't try to be brave, understand? Don't worry, Ding. 300 years ago, we were not as good as her. Now, it's not certain who will win. We will definitely get a good result, Murong Qianhua said confidently. Also, I don't care what grudges you have with Fatty and Chenxi. After you enter, you must put the academy first. Don't bully Chenxi in any way. Otherwise, the old man will not let anyone go. Understand? Understood. Murong Qianhua's expression was slightly ugly. Cheng Wanxiang's words were undoubtedly a public warning. Chenxi, you have an S-grade talent. The old man has given you special privileges. When necessary, you can disobey the commander's orders. At any time, you must protect your life. Yes, Dean. Chenxi was slightly stunned, but she immediately said gratefully. Chen Hao was also slightly surprised. He did not expect Cheng Wanxiang to take such care of her. This relieved Chen Hao a lot. Otherwise, Chen Hao was a little worried that Murong Qianhua and the other two would deliberately target Si Xian. After all, Murong Qianhua was a commander. If he deliberately made things difficult for her, it would be very troublesome. Especially when she encountered an opponent, she might even become cannon fodder. But now, the special privileges bestowed by Cheng Wanxiang eliminated this possibility. Not long after, the host's loud voice sounded. The Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's Myriad Dao space condensed in the hands of 10,000 true immortal kings. The competition officially began. Chi. One by one, the grotto heavens connected to the core arena. The participants of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm turned into streams of light and directly disappeared into the Myriad Dao space. Charge! Chi. Among the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm disciples of Parkway Academy, Chen Nan took the lead. He knew that when they stepped out of the Myriad Dao space, his brother would definitely see them. Therefore, he had to do his best, for no other reason than to let his brother see him at his strongest. Chapter 1394. The team competition of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm had officially begun. Countless cultivators were paying attention to the Dark Horse Academies led by the University of Dehua. If these academies could maintain their Dark Horse status in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, then they would definitely be the true Dark Horse. After all, the team competition accounted for the greatest proportion of the academy's rankings. Although the individual ranking competition had a certain impact on the academy's rankings, for a first-rate academy, it would only have an effect if they entered the top 10,000. Otherwise, the impact would be minimal, and it would be difficult to change the academy's ranking. However, the top 1,000 was very important for a first-rate academy that had hopes of being promoted to a top-tier academy. This was because having a top 1,000 expert was a necessary condition for a first-rate academy to be promoted to a top-tier academy. Whether it was the Daluo Golden Wonderland or the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, it was possible. This meant that in the team competition, after excluding the major forces like the Shao family that did not participate in the competition, to enter the top 100 of all academies, one disciple must enter the top 1,000 in the individual competition. Otherwise, it would still be impossible to become a top-tier academy. This was an extremely honorable thing for any genius disciple. Moreover, it was indeed difficult to enter the top 1,000. After all, the individual competition was not like the team competition, where only academies and major forces could participate. The individual competition was for any cultivator in the great world of Xian-Di, the Daluo Golden Wonderland, and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. Countless disciples of reclusive experts could appear. Many times, a top-tier academy might not necessarily have a single cultivator who could enter the top 1,000. This was also why Chen Wanxiang still had no confidence in Qin Hao's ability to enter the top 1,000, even though he already knew a lot about Fatty. Quick! Everyone enter my mind's great world. We can't waste any time. Hurry! Yes! Chi, Murong Qianhua's body was surrounded by dazzling starlight. After stepping into the great world, he directly gave the order. In an instant, streams of light flashed past, and most of the cultivators directly entered Murong Qianhua's glabella. This was the strength of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm cultivators. Everyone had a great world in their mind, which was something that the Daluo Golden Wonderland cultivators could not compare to. However, Si Xian frowned slightly. Cici, let's go in. Don't worry, I won't do anything you don't want me to do, Murong Qianhua said as he gazed at Si Xian with eager eyes. Sorry, I'd better go by myself. It won't be much slower. I'll catch up. After a moment of hesitation, Si Xian chose to refuse. Although she knew that Murong Qianhua would not do anything to her and would not dare to do anything to her, Si Xian did not want to give him too much contact. Stepping into Murong Qianhua's mind meant that her every move would be watched by him. She didn't want to be watched by Murong Qianhua. Murong Qianhua frowned slightly and shook his head as he looked at Si Xian's rapidly advancing figure. Soon after, the starlight shone brightly and his figure also moved forward quickly. However, to his slight surprise, although his speed was faster than Si Xian's, it was only a little faster. When he reached the first barrier, he had only opened up a few breaths of flying distance. This made him shocked by Si Xian's terrifying progress in the past 300 years. At the same time, he was even more regretful that he could not capture Si Xian's heart. No, I can't lose confidence. Before she starts dual cultivation with him, I still have a chance. As for him, unless he is still so abnormal after stepping into the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, I may not necessarily be worse than him. I can't lose. This time, I want to let everyone know that there are also geniuses like me, Murong Qianhua. Everyone, start comprehending with all your strength. Our goal is to enter the top 100. Buzz. The moment Murong Qianhua released all the cultivators, he directly entered the state of comprehension. Break. In less than 2 hours, Murong Qianhua, who was fully focused on comprehending, was the first to let out a slightly excited sound. Brother Murong is amazing. Big brother is amazing. Follow me. Amidst many praises, Murong Qianhua sent out waves of energy to wrap everyone, including Si Xian, and directly stepped through the first barrier. Good. At this time, Chen Wanxiang and the teachers and disciples of the College of Dehua also praised. Murong Qianhua's name appeared on the screen. Although he was not the first, he was in the top 100. This was indeed a very good start. Murong Qianhua is indeed the captain of the Starlight Squad. He is indeed amazing. Of course, can our captain be bad? He barely entered the top 100, and it's only the first level. It's just the beginning. It's nothing. Let's talk about it if he can have the last laugh. TSK, you are just in the Daluo realm. If you can still be so awesome after stepping into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, then you can say those sarcastic remarks. The disciples in the grotto heaven of the College of Dehua were buzzing with discussion. The factions were obvious. Murong Qianhua still had a lot of prestige due to the glory of the Starlight Squad. He still had many supporters among the cultivators in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. However, as time passed, some of the cultivators who praised Murong Qianhua were speechless. Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, Wan Yishui, Cheng Wanxiang, and even Qin Hao himself were slightly surprised. Even he did not expect Si Xian's performance to be so much better than expected. Murong Qianhua was only in the first 100 levels. In the first 100 levels, he had comprehended 44 levels. Tang Hu and Xian Yuanchen had comprehended about 20 levels each. Si Xian had comprehended 8 levels. Very few of the others were able to comprehend first. Murong Qianhua was indeed at the top. However, after the first 100 levels, Si Xian became the absolute main force. Out of every 10 levels, Si Xian would comprehend 50% of the levels. Moreover, with Si Xian's breakthrough, the speed of the College of Dahua's advancement was steadily maintained within the top 100. It even showed signs of sprinting into the top 50. Amazing, amazing! She is indeed Brother Fatty's woman. She is indeed our sister-in-law. Amazing! Brother Fatty, you haven't merged your yin and yang. That's really amazing. Ao Qian could not help but praise. Sister-in-law is really amazing. Ling Feng was also shocked. It could be said that they knew Si Xian very well. However, Si Xian's improvement made them feel like they did not know her at all. Even Chen Hao was the same. Just as Chen Wanxiang had said to Chen Hao that Chen Hao would be surprised by Si Xian's improvement, Chen Hao was indeed surprised at this moment. Am I the only one who is the worst? When Wan Yishui heard everyone's praise for Si Xian, she bit her lips and blushed slightly. At this moment, she felt ashamed of her inferiority. Si Xian, Miao Xian, and the girls who had just appeared in the College of Parkway made her feel inferior. Unknowingly, feelings of inferiority spread in her heart. Chapter 1395. Sister Shui, you're not bad. If you weren't with me, you'd definitely be able to comprehend a lot. After all, you've listened to my general principles countless times. Moreover, we've been communicating for so many years. It's just that you're not as fast as me. Chen Hao's voice suddenly appeared in Wan Yishui's mind. You don't have to comfort me. Wan Yishui's face turned even redder. She didn't expect Chen Hao to be able to capture her emotions. What's there to comfort? I'm telling the truth. I think that Si Xian was able to comprehend so much because she was listening to my general principles. You listened even more, but because you were with me, you didn't show it. Think about it, didn't you comprehend many of the barriers? It's just that before you could fully comprehend them, I was the first to complete them? That seems to be the case. Wan Yishui thought for a moment and was slightly surprised. Chenan. Parkway Academy. Suddenly, Chen Hao saw the name of the individual who had comprehended the barriers surging up the rankings. It's little Nan. Chen Hao was slightly excited. He already knew from Si Xian that Chen Nan and the others had already stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Now that he saw Chen Nan's name soaring up the rankings, he was naturally sure that it was his younger brother. Ling and Du Jing are up too. However, their individual rankings shouldn't be too high, just as Chen Hao expected. Although Chen Nan, Chen Ling, Du Jing, and the others had strong comprehension abilities, they were in a top academy where competition was fierce. Not only were there many geniuses, but they were also competing with each other. Naturally, their individual rankings would be slightly lower. However, Parkway Academy's speed of advancement was in the top 30, much faster than Dahua Academy. Chensi, is he actually this strong? It's only been 300 years, and his improvement is so shocking. Moreover, he's already been chosen by King Ying. He's far ahead, far ahead. I, Li Wuxiang, racked my brains and thought that I'd completely surpassed Dahua Academy. Who would have thought? Sigh. Li Wuxiang originally wanted his disciple, Ding Ling, to get back at them in the team competition of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. He wanted to use the lives of Murong Qianhua and the others in exchange for Shichao's godhead. This was because he believed that Ding Ling was strong enough to do it. Shichao was the strongest disciple he had ever met in his life. As long as he could obtain his godhead, he would be able to control Shichao's new reincarnation cycle and take him under his command. After a few thousand years, Shichao would become another monstrous genius. But now, the Tanglong Academy led by Ding Ling couldn't even catch up to the Dahua Academy. His wishful thinking had failed. Very good, very good. Ying, I'm starting to regret it. On the rostrum, the Celestial River King could not help but speak up when he saw Si Xian's name on the 23rd place of the individual comprehension barrier. Celestial River King must be joking. Her comprehension ability can only be regarded as good. Her performance is so outstanding because she is only in a first-class academy and has no competitors. Besides, even if she is really strong, in front of the countless genius disciples of your Shao clan, she is nothing. Pa, look at how nervous you are. I was just joking with you. As long as you want it, I can give up anything. Don't tell me it's just a disciple. Princess shook her head slightly and did not say anything else. She was indeed very nervous about Xian. Was it just because they looked alike? Of course not. Although the origin aura on Xian's body was very weak, so weak that she would not be able to detect it if she did not examine it carefully, it was definitely there. It was the aura of her bloodline origin. It was also because Xian had this aura that Princess was so sensitive to the Celestial River King's words. She was worried that the powerful Celestial River King would be able to sense it. After all, the Celestial River King was also very familiar with her origin aura. And the only origin bloodline that Princess had spread out was the product of her and Yilan, Yixian. Of course, Princess could sense that Xian was not Yixian, but she was sure that it was related to Yixian. How could she not be nervous? The Celestial River King's Shao clan is really too strong. They are number 1 again. Yeah, they are number 1 in Daluo and Hongmeng. They are basically number 1 in the group competition. This is the foundation of the number 1 clan. When the Shao clan's team was the first to step out of the space of myriad daos, countless praises could be heard. The Celestial River King's Shao clan was the number 1 clan in the great world of Xiandi. This made Chen Hao and the others understand how strong their foundation was. Princess Ying's Xian New Palace was only number 7 this time. Zhulu Academy was number 2, and Snowdrift Academy was number 4. Without a doubt, Zhulu Academy still retained their title as the number 1 academy. As for the Floating Snow Academy, one of the top 10 academies, if nothing unexpected happened, it would be ranked 2nd. Parkway Academy. Pissed. When the light spot representing Parkway Academy coincided with the core of the space of myriad daos, Chen Hao's eyes suddenly lit up. Then he saw several figures in the air. The 16th place was the same as Parkway Academy's Daluo Golden Wonderland team competition. Brother. Senior brother. Boss. Big brother. Many figures that Chen Hao was familiar with appeared. However, Chen Hao and the other cultivators did not expect that Chen Nan and Ao Tian's brothers and sisters, led by Chen Nan, would look in the direction of Daohua Academy and shout in unison. Unfortunately, Chen Hao could not step out of the grotto heaven. Although the other cultivators were curious, they did not know who Chen Nan and the others were shouting for. Brother Fatty, are they shouting for you? Ao Qian, Ling Feng and the others, who already knew about the relationship between Parkway Academy and Chen Hao, could vaguely guess and could not help but ask. That's my younger brother and many other brothers and sisters. Chen Hao had an excited expression as he stared at the figures who returned to their grotto heavens after just shouting. He spoke rather proudly. They are all very good. Ao Qian said. Indeed. However, when we step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, we will be even stronger. Ling Feng continued. That's true. No, as the Monkey King, I must work hard. No matter what, I must become the number 1 general under Brother Fatty. With me around, do you think you can? Piece of cake. I just don't want to give up on certain things. Otherwise, the current me. Forget it, there's no point in saying more. Let's wait and see. Ao Qian said confidently. Then let's wait and see. Ling Feng, who was already convinced by Fatty, would not let Ao Guang beat him. Fatty shrugged speechlessly and said, after this ranking competition, I should also step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Brother Fatty, you can't, right? You haven't reached the peak of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. If you step into the Hongmeng domain too early, it will be disadvantageous for your Yin spirit. Otherwise, I would have gone long ago. Chapter 1396. That's right. It's best to enter when you've all reached the Great Perfection realm. The best way is to adjust the cultivation realms of the Immortal Realm and the Great World of Xiandi to the same level. You may not feel it now, but the more you go, the more obvious it will be. This is something that countless seniors have proven. There's such a saying? Yes, Brother Fatty. This really can't be rushed. Then we'll talk about it when the time comes. Chen Hao frowned slightly. He felt that he had been stuck in the Daluo Golden Wonderland for a long time, especially after experiencing the nirvana of his true self. At this moment, when he saw that his younger brother Chen Nan, Coiling Dragon, and the others had taken the lead to step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, Chen Hao was a little impatient. Not bad, Sword King Chen Taishu stroked his beard and laughed, his eyes showing a rare excitement. This made Miao Xian and Qin Yang, who were in the Zhulu Academy's Grotto Heaven, very surprised. It seemed that after seeing Fatty, their master's spirit and mood improved a lot. This was a situation that they had never seen before. Miao Xian didn't know that Fatty had become close to his master. They're all here, Nene and the others even stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm ahead of time, and their strength is very good, In the immortal realm, Chen Wuliang burst out laughing almost the same as Sword King Chen Taishu. It seems that they really didn't come to the great world of Xiandi together, otherwise, Nen and the others wouldn't be so excited. Shui Mei said. Seeing them, I really feel that we're old. Han Mei said. How can that be? I'm still very young. As a father, I can't let my son surpass me. Surpass me but not too fast, how shameful would that be? Work hard, we must work hard. Chen Wuliang, Shui Mei, and Han Mei became even more gratified and excited after seeing Qin Nan and the others. I've decided, it's time to leave Dunjia Academy. Don't be surprised. With my current realm and strength, entering a first-rate academy isn't a problem at all. It's even possible for me to enter a top-notch academy. You mean to look for how? No, will affect them. Just tell them not to worry about us. What I mean is to choose another powerful force. It's better for our cultivation, Chen Wuliang said. All right then, Qi. He's out. Chen Wanxiang said excitedly. Because of Xi Xian's explosive performance, the Grand Mist Supremacy realm of the University of Dahua had once again exceeded Chen Wanxiang's expectations. They had actually obtained 67th place, surpassing the results of more than 30 top academies. This was simply unimaginable before the start of the competition. Even if it can't become a top-notch academy, it can definitely become a top-notch first-rate academy. Congratulations, Brother Cheng. Congratulations, I really didn't expect your University of Dahua to be so strong. You're really lucky. As long as one of the top 1,000 appears in the individual ranking competition, you'll be able to step into a top-notch academy. You're really amazing. It's nothing, it's just luck. Our foundation is still lacking. We just happen to be a bit stronger this time. It's hard to say what will happen in the individual competition. Cheng Wanxiang appeared modest on the surface, but his expression revealed unconcealable excitement as he responded to the congratulatory words coming from around him. Next to him, Li Wuxiang, who was at the entrance of the Grotto Heaven, had an ashen expression as he stared fiercely at the high-spirited Cheng Wanxiang. Although the Tanglong Academy led by Ding Ling was also close to the core and might be able to enter the top 100, and combined with the results of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, whether it was the Daluo Golden Wonderland or the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, as long as one of the top 1,000 appeared in the individual competition, they might be promoted to a top-notch academy. However, he wasn't happy at all. Top 1,000? As long as one of the top 1,000, our University of Dahua will be a top-notch academy? Top 1,000, this fat brother has hope. What do you mean by hope? Let's not talk about the others, but we've all seen this fat brother's terrifying strength with our own eyes. If he doesn't have hope of entering the top 1,000, I'll twist my head off and let you smash it like a watermelon. This, we can't be too sure. After all, the world is coming, and countless spirits of all things may appear in the individual competition. Moreover, at least half of the cultivators in the top 1,000 didn't belong to any major forces, but were disciples of some hidden masters. Yeah, before the competition starts, it's hard to say anything. It's better to be cautious. However, it's true that this fat brother has a high chance. Captain Murong also has a high chance. Yeah, that's true. As long as one of us enters the top 1,000, we'll all be treated much better. Let's pray. Is it that difficult to enter the top 1,000? Everyone's discussion made the fat man slightly puzzled. In his opinion, entering the top 1,000 was not a problem at all. It could be described as catching a chicken in the crotch of one's pants. It was something that was in the bag. His goal was to enter the top 10 with his sword principle. That's true. Being able to comprehend the Tao law doesn't mean that one's combat strength is awesome. Although Xichao is powerful, he's only in a first-rate academy. With my current strength, it's indeed not something that others can estimate, Chen Hao thought to himself. However, what they said makes sense. The world is coming, and spirits of all things like Xichao may really appear. I can't let my guard down. As for him, Chen Hao narrowed his eyes and glanced at Murong Chenhua, who looked a little solemn in the distance, with a touch of disdain. Such a love rival couldn't even arouse his fighting spirit. Si Xian could easily deal with him by herself. As for Tang Hu and Xian Yuanshan, who had jumped up and threatened to bet, they didn't dare to jump up now. If Chen Hao wanted to lower himself to their level, he would have mocked and ridiculed them. After the end of the team competition, the host announced a 3-day break. 3 days later, the individual ranking competition would still be held on Zhulu Peak. During these 3 days, the arbitration team would divide the participants into groups based on the information they had collected, arrange the competition process, and referees. After returning to his residence, Chen Hao wanted to apply to the dean to go to the palace where Parkway Academy was located to see his girls and siblings. However, before he could say anything, he was forcibly taken away by the beautiful teachers, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian, in the name of special training before the competition. At the same time, the other teachers took away Murong Chenhua, Si Xian, Tang Hu, Shen Yuanshan, Wan Yishui, Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and the other strongest people of the 2 realms in Daihua Academy. It was also a special training before the competition. Moreover, they all stepped into the mind of the dean, Cheng Wanxiang. Daihua Academy wasn't the only one who did this. It could be said that most of the academies did the same. This was also the usual practice before the start of the individual competition. Buzz. The space shook, and Chen Hao and the 2 beautiful teachers, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian, appeared in the vast and boundless space. Chapter 1397. In the void, the aura of the heavenly Tao was countless times clearer than in the grand 1,000 worlds of the immortal emperors. The heaven and earth spirit qi was even thicker and purer. Chen Hao could clearly feel that he could directly absorb it without refining it. Moreover, he didn't feel any discomfort. The compatibility between the heaven and earth spirit qi was extremely high. Obviously, this was a pure vital essence that was specially condensed according to Chen Hao's aura so that Chen Hao could quickly replenish it without any hindrance. He did not need to waste time recovering his energy. Ruo Lan's words proved this point. Little brother, the 2 of us will accompany you for these 3 days. Don't waste your time. This is a space that we sisters have specially created for you in our strongest immortal artifact. The quintessence here is completely compatible with you. The laws of the world have been strengthened countless times. It will undoubtedly be of great help to your cultivation and comprehension. Of course, the most important thing is that the 2 of us can feed you moves. Ruo Lan looked directly into Chen Hao's eyes with her beautiful eyes and said with a sweet smile, "Feed me moves? But you don't like it? Cough cough. Why would I? It's just that, it's only 3 days. I just stepped out of the space of myriad Tao not long ago. I think it's more important to meditate. Don't underestimate our celestial artifact. Even the dean is ashamed of his inferiority. We can activate the space-time law 3,000 times. It can't be? Chen Hao was shocked. Do you think I'm lying to you? Of course, we borrowed the power of the dean's mind. Otherwise, with our cultivation, we would not be able to unleash the power of the celestial artifact to such an extent. Under the space-time law 3,000 times, that's 9,000 days. It's easy to comprehend the Tao of the space of myriad Tao, but using it is not something that can be done in a day. 20 years is too short. Moreover, for most of the top geniuses, they have basically surpassed the limits of their own realm. You are the same. Therefore, you can't rely on the realm of Tao to win. Absolute power, combat skills, tactics, and the unique skills that you are proficient in now are the key to victory. The only things that can be improved in a short period of time are absolute power and targeted tactics. After all, you have just reached the complete realm. That's true. Then I'll have to trouble you too. Chen Hao shrugged and cupped his fists. Why do I feel like you want to distance yourself from me? After hearing Chen Hao's words, Ruo Xian faintly smiled. She took a step closer and lifted her beautiful face, as if she wanted to see through Chen Hao. Cough cough. How could that be? Big sister Ruolin, you're thinking too much. I didn't mean that. Fatty was slightly embarrassed. The beautiful teacher's senses are very sharp, and her attacks seem to be very fierce. Furthermore, she doesn't hold back at all. When she saw the fatty's abnormality, she immediately pointed it out. This seemed to be an extremely tempting thing for any man, but Chen Hao was rather annoyed. Are you done flirting? At this moment, the sexy and fiery Ruo Xian suddenly spoke up. She seemed rather impatient. If that's enough, then let's begin. Don't waste time, this is consuming a lot of energy every second. Xian, are you jealous? Ruo Lan glared at the unromantic Ruo Xian and said, Bah, I'm not interested. Is that so? Are you going to start? If not, I'm leaving. Alright, brother, you should start refining your true origin first and raise your absolute power to your current limit. After Ruo Lan finished speaking, she directly went to Ruo Xian's side and retreated into the distance. At the same time, she said, When you're done refining, we sisters will take turns to spar with you. Good luck. Immediately, the two figures disappeared from Chen Hao's sight. Indeed, I should first refine my absolute power to its limit. Phew. Chen Hao took a deep breath and slowly merged his mind into his body. Chen Hao's realm had just reached the complete realm of, I am heaven and earth, I am heaven and earth. Indeed, he needed to refine his true origin. This was also the most direct way to increase his combat strength. Then let's devour. Buzz. Chi. With a thought, Chen Hao directly merged into the state of mind of the berserk demon realm. He began to crazily devour the spiritual energy of the world that was completely compatible with him. Moreover, it was constantly being compressed in his body. At the same time, the general outline of the great Tao began to resound in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao had to take the pressure of being in the top 10 of the sword principle seriously. Moreover, although he knew that he could not hide his actions from Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian, Chen Hao did not care. Immediately, golden lotus-like runes suddenly floated in his mind and condensed into mysterious runes that connected the heaven and earth. They began to devour the spiritual chi of heaven and earth crazily. A moment later, the thick and boundless heaven and earth spiritual chi began to fluctuate and gather towards Chen Hao at a faster and faster speed. Chen Hao's body, without any consciousness, began to expand slowly. What a fast devouring speed! Roland, look at him. Carefully sense his aura. Could it be that he's in the mad demon realm? It seems like it. No wonder he's devouring so fast. But doesn't the mad demon realm only appear when he's seriously stimulated? How would I know? You'll have to ask this little fatty. He's shrinking again. He's using the most direct, painful, and cruel method to refine his true origin. When Ruo Xian saw the fatty's gradually expanding body suddenly shrink, she understood that the fatty was directly devouring and compressing the spiritual chi to break through his limits. What a crazy guy! Ruolan was also extremely surprised. They had used this kind of cultivation method before, but they would definitely not use it unless it was absolutely necessary. This was because the pain was not something that ordinary people could endure. More importantly, it was very dangerous. Once the physical body's limit was estimated wrongly, the body would explode and die. If it was too small, the effect would be greatly reduced. Therefore, under normal circumstances, very few cultivators would use this method. After 4 hours, Chen Hao had undergone 9 cycles of expansion and contraction. The true origin around his body was once again compressed to the limit. What was amazing was that streams of true origin that seemed to have no attribute, but could transform into any attribute, constantly escaped from his pores. Because he had reached his limit, his pores seemed to be forcing out faint traces of blood, interacting with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. His limbs, veins, organs, and every cell began to expand again. However, this time, the expansion speed was much slower than the previous 9 cycles. He's compressing the spiritual qi and expanding at the same time? It seems like it's crazy. How can he not be crazy when he's in the mad demon realm? If I'm not wrong, his consciousness is only left with a strand of obsession, and it's an obsession that he has set. Before he completes the requirements of his obsession, he will become more and more crazy. Chapter 1398. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, that should be the case. I really didn't expect this little fatty to be so ruthless to himself. Even if he doesn't possess a powerful bloodline, his strength would still be greatly affected after his physical body was destroyed and reconstructed into a golden body. If he can't hold on any longer, we'll help him. Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian looked at the expanding Chen Hao from afar and communicated secretly. As time passed, Chen Hao grew bigger and bigger. The true yuan in his body became more and more terrifying. The energy fluctuations in the immortal artifact space became more and more intense. Not only did Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian become more and more nervous, even Qing Wanxiang, who was providing energy for the immortal artifact space, was alarmed. Unfortunately, Qing Wanxiang couldn't see what was happening to Ruo Lan, Ruo Xian, and Chen Hao. He thought that Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian were taking the opportunity to extort some energy from him. If he knew that it was Chen Hao who was devouring the energy, he would be even more shocked than Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian. Boom, 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 boom. The exquisite Taoist robe of the Taoist Academy on Chen Hao's body was actually torn apart by his swollen body and the vigorous and raging true essence aura, turning into strands of silk. Fortunately, Chen Hao had secretly used the Saint Artifact soft armor before the start. Otherwise, he would probably have to be honest at this moment. As his robe exploded, Chen Hao's body began to tremble violently. In his demonic state, his expression became even crazier. It was as if he was enduring endless pain and could explode at any time. However, boundless heaven and earth spiritual energy continued to surge into his body. Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian held their breaths nervously. Chen Hao's dantian, meridians, and every cell in his body were operating at their limits. Boundless true yuan surged violently in his body like a raging ocean. Suddenly, Chen Hao roared into the sky. Mysterious runes flew out from between his eyebrows and turned into halos that enveloped his body. Buzz. In an instant, the pores all over Chen Hao's body actually closed, and he finally stopped absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, in this extreme state, he actually used the power of the divine ability runes to forcefully compress himself like a vessel. Pain, unbearable pain. Chen Hao, who was in his demonic state, roared crazily. Boom, 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 boom. After several hours, Chen Hao's Dantian's Dantian True Yuan translation Dantian's Dantian suddenly, the energy that could make Chen's Dantian. Splash! At this moment, Chen Hao's Dantian seemed to have transformed into an endless sea. His meridians, internal organs, and cells were filled with true essence, which directly and rapidly fused into a true essence that was several times purer than before. The evolved true essence transformed into rivers and lakes that flowed through his meridians from all directions and converged into Chen Hao's Dantian, like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind had also entered a wonderful state. His demonic state had disappeared, and his mind seemed to be in a defensive state. His will was in his Dantian, and he was quietly feeling the endless comfort brought about by the increase in the quality of his true qi. Happiness came after suffering. It didn't take long for Chen Hao's body to return to its original size. His entire aura seemed to have disappeared, becoming one with the space. The pain all over his body had completely disappeared, and what replaced it was a feeling of power as if the world was under his control. Boom! A sword light suddenly flew out from Chen Hao's hand. Rumble! The sword light exploded. Heaven and earth shook. When Chen Hao entered Ruoxian's and Ruolin's divine artifact to cultivate, the information of all the contestants was displayed on the huge display screen of the arbitration team through their respective tokens. This was the information that the major forces had filled in during the registration. It also included the information of the various tests and experience records of the cultivators in the great world of Xiandi. This would be used as a preliminary assessment of combat power. It would be used for the individual ranking competition. The number of cultivators participating in the individual ranking competition was 10 times or even 100 times more than the group competition. That was because as long as one's cultivation level met the requirements, there were no restrictions. Anyone could participate. Because of this, the individual ranking competition was divided into 1,000 groups. The top 100 from each group would be selected. Being able to qualify meant that one had stepped into the top 100,000 in the great world of Xiandi. 100,000 sounded like a large number. However, compared to the number of contestants, which was counted in hundreds of millions, it was definitely a powerful existence. Therefore, all the cultivators who could qualify were basically monstrous geniuses in the great world of Xiandi. After the top 100,000 contestants were selected, they were divided into 10 groups again according to their performance. Each group had 10,000 people. The top 100 from each group would be selected again. This time, the top 100 would be the top 10,000 in the great world of Xiandi. He succeeded so quickly? How can this little fatty be so monstrous? Ruoxian looked at the dazzling sword light and felt the absolute power that it contained. She was shocked. I knew that he was very strong. However, I didn't expect him to be stronger than I expected. Now, do you believe me? Ruolin said with a smile. Unless you show him, I won't believe it. Okay, I'll show you. However, don't be jealous. Ruolin said confidently. Phew. Gently exhaling, Chen Hao's lips curled into a smile. This is my true strength. As expected, one can't cook without rice. Without the support of absolute power, it's impossible. Now, I have the confidence to suppress that girl. Chen Hao felt the surging power in his body. He was full of confidence. Only now did he realize how big the gap was between the peak of the late stage of the Daluo Golden Wonderland and refining himself to the peak of the peak of the peak. Originally, he didn't think there was much of a difference. However, now he knew that the difference was not small. However, he had done it in just one day. Of course, this was also the reason why he had accumulated so much power. Similarly, there was an endless supply of spiritual energy from heaven and earth that didn't require refining. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so simple. Who knew how long it would take to gather spiritual energy from heaven and earth? This was when there were sufficient spiritual items of heaven and earth. What if there were no spiritual items of heaven and earth? I can't waste it. It's a free lunch. I'll eat as much as I can. Chen Hao suddenly moved. In an instant, the sound of air breaking was released from his hands. It turned into extremely mysterious sword light, violently and sharply attacking the air. He didn't hold back at all. Every attack condensed the strongest power. He only had one goal, which was to exhaust all the energy in his body as quickly as possible. Buzz. At this moment, the space shook. Ruolin's figure suddenly appeared near Chen Hao. Chapter 1399. Ruolin did not even greet him and directly attacked. However, Chen Hao was not surprised. He was very excited that Ruolin had come in time to attack him. Chen Hao's attacks instantly became violent and sharp, twisting and turning, unsheathing and unsheathing his sword. One after another resplendent sword light after another was constantly emitted from his body. The places where they connected, there wasn't the slightest bit of sloppiness, like moving clouds and flowing water, continuous and unending. His fat body sometimes condensed into one, and sometimes twisted crazily. He exerted the power of his body and sword to the extreme. Facing Ruolin, who was several realms higher than him and was the genius of the first academy tens of thousands of years ago, Chen Hao did not have the slightest scruple. He did not have to worry that he would hurt her at all. What he needed to do was to unscrupulously display what he had learned, comprehended, and the strongest power to test and improve his combat strength. Ruolin, on the other hand, was feeding him at the right time, forcing Chen Hao to explode with more and more powerful attacks and defenses. Such a scene did not take long before Chen Hao was completely immersed in a state of battle to his heart's content. His pitch-black and deep eyes flickered with rays of bright light, extremely focused, and exquisite and sharp sword skills emerged one after another. Although the magical power and laws contained in them were very simple and low-level for Ruolin's cultivation, in Chen Hao's hands, they had the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. The seemingly unrelated sword Dao runes were actually linked and resonating with each other, erupting with power that was completely beyond his own realm. This alone was not enough to shock Ruolin. What really shocked her was that the absolute power contained in Chen Hao's body was even more vigorous than that of the monstrous geniuses in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Even an ordinary cutting path genuine immortal would be inferior to him. This was really incredible. The only explanation was that Chen Hao's physical talent was unbelievably strong. In the same realm, his absolute power was much more tyrannical and vigorous. Why only use sword Dao? As far as I know, you are not a pure sword puppet. Although your attacks are almost flawless, they do not have the pure sword Dao consciousness of a true sword cultivator. Therefore, this is not your strongest power. Just do as you please and don't be limited to the sword. Oh, that's fine. During the battle, Ruolin, who had a powerful cultivation base and was knowledgeable, eventually discovered Chen Hao's weakness and reminded him. Chen Hao pondered for a moment and did not insist. At the same time, he was also shocked by how sharp Ruolin's eyes were. After all, his sword skill could be said to be a combination of sword force and sword will. It could be said that there were no flaws, at least for his current level. However, Ruolin still saw through his problem. Indeed, he was not a true sword puppet. Although his sword skills and sword will had achieved that, every time he attacked or dispelled Ruolin's attack, there would be abhijna absolute art that did not belong to the category of sword skills appearing in his mind. This was what Ruolin meant when she said that he did not have a pure sword will. At this time, Chen Hao really didn't have to insist. After all, this was his training after advancing to the consummate level, so it should be all-round. Life-taking scissors kick. Chen Hao's body suddenly trembled, and he shouted loudly. Amidst the endless sword light, he suddenly used the great teleportation art to close the distance between him and Ruolin. Then he used the deadly scissor kick, a unique skill of the martial arts world in close combat. In an instant, his legs were like a pair of scissors, opening and closing abruptly. Every time he opened and closed his legs, he would release an extremely terrifying amount of Dao Law energy, which transformed into countless afterimages, changing from various angles as he ferociously and violently kicked Ruolin. Good! Ruolin shouted softly and suddenly stretched out her slender hands, agilely forming two beautiful incantations in front of her chest. She suddenly stretched out her hands, one on the left and one on the right. Amidst the endless afterimages, she broke through layers of Dao Law and directly grabbed Chen Hao's ankles. What? Chen Hao was shocked. He wasn't shocked by Ruolin's strength, but by how could Ruolin suddenly be so shameless? Was this still considered feeding him moves? Her slender hands that suddenly broke through layers of Dao Law and forcibly immobilized him like steel bars and iron hoops. It was obvious that she had used a power that was completely beyond her realm. This was called bullying. After all, this was feeding him moves. Even if Ruolin didn't seal her realm, she should control her power to the same level as his. Otherwise, Ruolin could directly crush Chen Hao with the absolute power of her realm. How could she feed him moves? Lock. Put. But before Chen Hao could be shocked for long, Ruolin, who used her powerful strength to grab Chen Hao's ankles, suddenly stuck to Chen Hao's body like an octopus and wrapped around Chen Hao. This made Chen Hao's eyes widen, and he was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Golden snake clinging hands. Back then, when Chen Hao fought Helian Wuzi on the arena for the first time, it was a rogue technique that defeated the strong with the weak. And at this moment, a great beauty, a dignified teacher, who had attracted countless geniuses to bow down to her, was actually using it on him. Chen Hao was a little dumbfounded. Because Ruo Lan's face was facing Chen Hao's feet, Ruo Lan's slender legs wrapped around Chen Hao's waist, as well as the view under her skirt, were all seen by Chen Hao. Her plump buttocks were right in front of his eyes. Her soft and smooth body was stuck to his body just like that. Waves of tempting virgin body fragrance assaulted Chen Hao's nose. Seduction. Seduction. This was definitely a naked seduction and provocation. Ancient martial arts technique, golden snake clinging hands, a peerless technique that allows the weak to defeat the strong. You have to sense it carefully. If you can get rid of me with the same power, you win. Put, Ruo Lan suddenly said. As she spoke, Ruo Lan's body suddenly wrapped around Chen Hao's waist again, and she was now face to face with him. At this moment, even if Chen Hao's skin was extremely thick, he still blushed. What kind of scene was this? Her beautiful face was so close, her deep, snow-white cleavage, and he could almost see the full appearance of the two jade bunnies. How could he endure this? How shameless, how shameless! You actually secretly mastered the immortal illusionary Heart Sutra. You actually used it on the little fatty student. Are you jealous? If you do this and others know about it, where are you going to put your face? You know it, I know it, he knows it, who else would know? Moreover, I only used it on him. Alright, I really don't know how you've been bewitched by him. You're hopeless. Is it really worth it? I don't know. I'm just following my heart. What Chen Hao did not know was that at this moment, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian were standing side by side, looking at him seductively as he rolled on the ground. The immortal illusionary Heart Sutra was the same as the Red Dust Heart Sutra. It was also a powerful technique that was used to control emotions. When it was cultivated to a high level, it could form all kinds of emotional illusions. Moreover, it was completely derived from the other party's state of mind. Unless the person's state of mind was stronger than the caster, otherwise, they would not be able to discover it. Chapter 1400. In reality, all Ruo Lan did was to grab Chen Hao's ankles with both hands and seduce him with the golden snake's sticky hand. Everything that happened after that was an emotional illusion that Chen Hao had conjured up in his mind. What Chen Hao would do would depend entirely on what kind of emotion Ruo Lan was using. At this moment, Ruo Lan was obviously activating lust. If nothing went wrong, Chen Hao and Ruo Lan in the illusion would evolve into endless lust. Only then would Chen Hao's soul origin appear in the fusion of soul and body. That would mean that Ruo Lan had made Chen Hao reveal his true self. However, Chen Hao, who was entangled, with a conflicted and embarrassed expression, suddenly moved. Under the same absolute power, he became even more of an octopus than Ruo Lan. Under Ruo Lan's lockdown, he deftly locked himself in place. No way! Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian widened their eyes in shock. Chen Hao had used the golden snake's sticky hand as well. Moreover, he was more skilled and proficient than the illusory Ruo Lan. He easily locked himself in place. While Ruo Lan was still in shock, Chen Hao, who had successfully locked himself in place, suddenly shook his body and teleported away. Fuck no way? At this moment, Ruo Lan's emotional illusion collapsed. Chen Hao could clearly see Ruo Lan standing next to Ruo Xian. However, Ruo Lan was nowhere to be seen. What a powerful emotional illusion! If I didn't happen to be proficient in the golden snake's sticky hand, wouldn't I? The astute Chen Hao instantly understood the effects of Ruo Lan's emotional illusion and the consequences it would cause. Teacher Ruo Lan, what are you doing? Chen Hao said with a conflicted expression. It's just an illusion. Why are you so nervous? Do you think I'll eat you? I didn't expect you to be so proficient in ancient martial arts. You're even proficient in the golden snake's sticky hand. Xian, why don't you spar with him? Ruo Lan blushed and changed the topic, pushing Ruo Xian to the front. After all, Ruolan was still a virgin. It was fine if she succeeded, but it was too embarrassing for her to be exposed before she even succeeded. Don't talk nonsense. She only wants to know if your original appearance is the same as the one she saw in your eyes. Because she saw someone in Zhulu Academy who looked exactly like you. It's that simple. If I let you see, then show your true self. If you don't, then don't waste time. Just make your move. Ruo Xian straightened her proud chest and coldly stared at the fatty as she said straightforwardly. As she spoke, her entire aura began to vibrate. Unlike Ruolin, she had actually sealed her realm to the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Chen Tianhao? Chen Hao was slightly stunned. He immediately understood who Ruo Xian was talking about. Indeed, anyone who had seen the image drawn by Ruolan would be shocked when they saw Zhulu Academy's Chen Tianhao. Are you him or is he you? When Ruo Xian saw Chen Hao's expression, she immediately looked straight at Chen Hao and asked forcefully. I don't know. Chen Hao hesitated for a moment and shrugged. What do you mean? Ruolan returned to Chen Hao's side and asked. The situation is a little complicated. You'll know after I fight with him. Brother, can't you be clearer? Ruolan frowned slightly and asked with a trace of worry. Ruolan had an indescribable feeling when she first saw the fatty. Although they still hadn't interacted much, Ruolan dared to use that kind of emotional illusion on Chen Hao. It was enough to show how important Chen Hao was in her heart. Just like what she said to Ruo Xian, the 3 generations watch wasn't a joke. Otherwise, Ruolan would never use that kind of illusion on a man, even if it was all an illusion. It was also because of this kind of love at first sight that Ruolan was really worried about Chen Hao. What would it mean after the fight? Chen Tianhao was the top student of Zhulu Academy, the first academy, the #1 expert in the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the direct disciple of the Star River King. He was very likely to be the #1 individual in this year's Daluo Golden Wonderland. Although Ruolan's sharp eyes could see that Chen Hao was much more honest than Chen Hao, strength was strength. And now, Chen Hao's answer was obviously not as simple as a doppelganger. I really can't say. I don't know how to say it. Chen Hao scratched his head awkwardly. He couldn't stand Ruolan's gaze. Chen Tianhe is your life, and you are the main body, right? Ruo Xian asked again. Yes, the situation is complicated now. In other words, his independent consciousness has escaped the influence of the origin, right? Chen Hao didn't expect the big-breasted Ruo Xian to speak so directly. He is now the direct disciple of the Star River King. The Star River King naturally saw that he was just one of the 9 lives and accepted him as his direct disciple. Naturally, the Star River King cut off your origin link. Otherwise, an ordinary true immortal king wouldn't be able to do it. Is that right? Yes. Chen Hao had to answer again. He looked at Ruo Xian with a little surprise. Didn't they say that big-breasted people had no brains? It didn't apply to Ruo Xian at all. So, either you die or he dies. Only in this way can you unite the origin. When you die, he fuses with you. His thoughts take over, and you just become part of his consciousness. When he dies, you fuse with him and take back your origin. Right? It should be. In fact, there is no life and death between you two. After the fusion, you are still yourself. The only difference is which one of you has the dominant consciousness and has chosen a different path. You're just like different people. That's the case. However, his way of thinking is not what I want. Thus, I absolutely cannot do that, Chen Hao said. That's natural. Independent thinking, different experiences, people and things that are important to you may not be worth mentioning to him. What you cherish may be discarded like a pair of worn-out shoes, but these are the most important things. What is the most important thing? Tao. Tao. Yes. The highest realm of the 9 lives profound technique is completely independent and equal. Any life is equal. There is no such thing as the original body and the avatar. No one can control the other with their origin. Only a life and death battle can be carried out. The dead will be fused with the living. In the end, the one who can survive is the strongest. This is the choice of the strongest Tao, not the choice of emotions. The Tao is ruthless, and the goal is to become stronger. Amazing, Chen Hao said in surprise. Xian Xian, how do you know so much about the 9 lives profound technique? I have never heard you talk about it. Ruo Lan looked at Ruo Xian in surprise and asked. She was the one who knew Ruo Xian the best, but at this time, Ruo Xian's look and aura made her a little stunned. Chapter 1401. I know a lot of things. What's there to say? Ruo Xian glanced at Ruo Lan and said. Then, she turned to Chen Hao and said, How many lives do you have? I think it's not just Chen Ritian and Chen Tianhe, right? Chen Ritian is my 8th life and also my last life. Chen Tianhe is my 2nd life and the first life that I gave birth to. Other than you, Chen Ritian, and Chen Tianhe, where are the other lives? With your current strength, I'm afraid you're no match for Chen Tianhe. The best way is to integrate the other lives and increase your strength. As for the 9 lives profound technique, I don't think it's suitable for you to continue cultivating it. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. That's right. Xian Xian is right. Chen Tianhe is very strong? My current aura is still inferior to his? Chen Hao frowned slightly. Previously, both of them thought that Chen Hao was inferior to Chen Tianhe. Chen Hao could understand this. After all, Chen Tianhe was the chief disciple of the top academy, Zhulu Academy. On the other hand, Zhulu Academy was only a first-rate academy. There was no comparison at all. However, now that Chen Hao had completely released his aura, Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan should be able to sense it. After all, they were top geniuses tens of thousands of years ago. Moreover, they had entered the top 100 of the great world of Xiandi when they were in the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. They should have a good understanding of the top genius's strength. However, they still thought that Chen Hao was inferior to Chen Tianhe. His aura is obviously much stronger than yours. This is the truth. During the group test, when he led the disciples of Zhulu Academy out, although it was only for a moment and he restrained himself, he still gave off an unfathomable feeling. The power of faith in his body is terrifying. Not to mention the Daluo Golden Wonderland, even the top geniuses in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm are not as strong as him. Moreover, I can see that he might have even greater hidden strength. I've always been good at reading people, Ruo Lan said. Lan Lan is right. So powerful? Chen Hao's expression turned serious as he muttered. From the looks of it, he must have truly fused the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th animus. Huh! Ruo Lan was shocked. Ruo Xian also frowned slightly. Are you sure? It happened during the group competition. Furthermore, he did something and arranged for my students to be near Zhulu Academy, while Arhua Academy was on the other side. Up until now, only 7th anima is still around. He escaped because he didn't participate in the group battle. As for 7th anima, it just so happens that he's in the same situation as you, Sister Ruoxian. Back then, due to certain reasons, I originally wanted 7th anima to completely replace me and do certain things. Therefore, I'm practically on the same level as him. My control over him is negligible, Chen Hao said. After a slight pause, he continued, However, based on my estimations, 7th anima will probably still be in the same group as Chen Tianhe during the individual competition. Then wouldn't Chen Tianhe succeed and become even stronger? Ruo Lan asked. If that's the case, then he'll naturally become even stronger. Ruo Xian said, however, the individual competition's groups and opponents aren't controlled by humans. It should be fine. Right, I actually forgot about that when I was nervous. Ruo Xian speechlessly glared at Ruo Lan and continued, He's currently fused with 5 lives, while you're only at 2. If he can fuse with your 7th anima, then the difference in strength between the two of you might be able to shrink. As the original body, if you can shake his seal on his origin aura during battle, then you have a chance of winning. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome. Which academy is your 7th anima in? Tell me. This, I'm not sure. I only know that he came to the great world of Xiandi. If nothing unexpected happens, he should be participating in the ranking competition. You should at least know his name, right? This. I really don't know. His surname should be Chen, Chen Hao said awkwardly. He'd obtained all the information about the seventh anima from Si Xian, and Si Xian had obtained it from the other girls. After the seventh anima left for the great world of Xian Di in a fit of pique, there was no more information. Even when he was in the immortal realm, he refused to communicate with anyone. Therefore, he couldn't be sure of the situation after the seventh anima entered the great world of Xian Di. What name he used, whether he disguised his aura, and so on, were all unknown. What Chen Hao didn't know was that although the seventh anima had refused to contact Chen Shui, Chen Nan, and even Yi Lan, in the end he still contacted Nurse Lu Hui, who he was closest to. There was no helping it. Nurse Lu Hui was the one who understood the seventh anima the most. She'd been a part of Qin Chi's growth, cultivation, and so on. She could be said to be the most important person in Qin Chi's heart. Similarly, Chen Hao was also extremely important in Nurse Lu Hui's heart. Although he couldn't replace Chen Hao's original body, he contained a very deep affection and familial affection. After all, Lu Hui had single-handedly raised him. It was also because of this that Lu Hui had left alone after entering the great world of Xian Di. She couldn't be at ease with the seventh anima. You don't know anything about your seventh anima? Ruo Xian was a bit speechless. After the seventh anima was born, I left. Furthermore, he entered the great world of Xian Di on his own. I really didn't have any information about him. Anyway, increasing my strength is the most important thing. Whether it's the seventh anima or the second anima, since they've come this far, I'll give them a fair fight. Don't worry, just because his aura is strong doesn't mean he's strong. I have confidence, Chen Hao said. At this point, Chen Hao could naturally see that Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian were truly concerned about him. Therefore, he didn't hold back and directly expressed his strong confidence. His pitch-black eyes shone with an extremely resolute light as an invisible aura was quietly born. At this moment, Chen Hao's aura didn't increase in the slightest. However, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian suddenly looked at Chen Hao with astonishment. Aura. Invincible aura. It was formless and didn't have any substantial pressure, but it directly shook one's soul. It felt completely different. This is your real aura? Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian looked at Chen Hao in surprise. Is there a difference? Chen Hao didn't feel much about it. In his opinion, he was just displaying his confidence. There's a big difference. Although the strength of your aura hasn't changed, it's like the difference between a treasured sword with and without a sword soul. You tell me, is the difference big? Ruo Xian said. Little brother, your surname is Qin. Your real appearance is Qin Tianhe's appearance, right? Yes. Then why did you disguise yourself like this? Don't you know that any disguise will more or less affect one's luck? I know, but I have no choice. Chapter 1402. Although Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian asked for the reason, Chen Hao did not explain too much. Even though Chen Hao could feel that the two of them treated him well, he could not tell them about ancient chaos. Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan could only help Chen Hao by sparring with him. Therefore, after the three of them finished talking, Ruo Xian, who was already prepared, started to fight Chen Hao. She, who had sealed her own level, showed no mercy. Chen Hao could only fight with all his might against this girl from tens of thousands of years ago. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a series of violent explosions were heard as the two of them attacked each other fiercely. This made Chen Hao, who longed for a real, hearty battle, feel very good. Ruo Xian did not deliberately go easy on him, and she was not as gentle as Ruo Lan. This made Chen Hao feel as if he was in a life-and-death battle, and he was facing the test of life and death at every moment. Such a scene made Ruo Lan, who was watching the battle, tremble in fear. She was sweating for the crazy battle between the two of them. It had to be said that this was the real feeding of moves and a real battle. Only in this way could Chen Hao familiarize himself with his new strength and better comprehend the real mysteries of the various divine powers and laws. Only in this way could he grasp the best way to use the various ultimate techniques and the best timing to sharpen his battle skills in the ever-changing real battles. In the beginning, Chen Hao, who had just increased his absolute strength, was unable to fully unleash it. However, following Ruo Xian's incisive, berserk and exquisite attacks, after several consecutive dangerous situations, Chen Hao threw away all distracting thoughts and completely immersed himself in the battle. The more Ruo Xian fought, the more surprised she was. Ruo Lan became more nervous and excited as she watched. No matter what, they did not expect that Chen Hao's combat skills, especially his attainments in ancient martial arts, were not inferior to Ruo Xian's. It was a simple and ordinary divine ability. However, after Chen Hao executed it with his ancient martial arts, the power it unleashed was far beyond their imagination. Moreover, as time passed, Chen Hao was always able to use the most appropriate energy attribute at the most appropriate time to execute the most appropriate divine ability. But this still wasn't the most shocking thing. What shocked the two of them the most was Chen Hao's astonishing recovery ability. It must be known that when Chen Hao finished devouring the world's spiritual energy, the entire space had stopped condensing the world's spiritual energy for Chen Hao to directly devour. But now, in such an intense battle, the consumption was undoubtedly enormous, but Chen Hao's essence, energy, true essence, and physical strength were becoming fiercer and fiercer as he fought, as if they were inexhaustible. It was as if they were not inferior to Ruo Xian. How could he compare with Ruo Xian? Although Ruo Xian had sealed her own realm and limited the power she could release, the amount of energy in her body did not change. It was completely understandable that she could maintain such a state in battle. But Chen Hao could do it too. And he was recovering himself in the middle of a battle. This was really unbelievable. Time passed by minute. Ruo Xian, who was completely acting as a sparring partner, had no choice but to raise the realm of her divine ability again and again. With her limited realm, she transformed it into infinite divine abilities and continuously attacked Chen Hao. Such a situation was inevitable for Chen Hao to encounter in the ranking competition. Many geniuses had already surpassed the limits of their own realms. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, when the battle had lasted for 7 days and 7 nights, even Ruo Xian felt that she could not continue. Chen Hao was still full of true essence, but his essence, energy, and spirit were exhausted. He could no longer condense a decent divine ability. The two of them lay on the ground, panting. This was a real battle that allowed Chen Hao to fight to his heart's content. It also allowed Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan to see Chen Hao's true strength. This was only the beginning of the battle. When Chen Hao had just recovered to his peak state, Ruo Lan, who had long been unable to hold herself back, attacked again. Unlike the first time, she had sealed her own realm like Ruo Xian and attacked without restraint. Ruo Xian, on the other hand, had recovered to her original realm to support the two of them in the battle of life and death. Under the space-time law, time passed quickly. Finally, the 3 days in the outside world were up. Buzz. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 3 streaks of light flashed past. Chen Hao, Ruo Lan, and Ruo Xian finally escaped from between Qing Wanxiang's eyebrows. At this moment, Dean Qing Wanxiang, Pavilion Master Mo Shilin, and many teachers and disciples of the University of Dahua all looked at Chen Hao. Many of them gasped in shock. The fatty was still a fatty, but his aura was several times stronger. Even with the space-time law, it was impossible to have such a terrifying improvement in just 3 days. However, the absolute power displayed by the fatty's aura was several times stronger. What was even more terrifying was that the fatty's fierce and determined gaze made the cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland feel an enormous pressure. It was like an unclimbable mountain that they could only look up to. Even Murong Qianhua and the other primordial chaos supremes felt a sense of reluctance to fight him from the bottom of their hearts. Momentum. General momentum. General momentum of invincibility. But I didn't expect you to improve so much in just 3 days. Not only did your true origin advance to another level, but you've also honed the general momentum of invincibility. Ruo Xian and Ruo Lan are really good. This old man is ashamed of his inferiority. Cheng Wanxiang said. Dean, you're too modest. You're already the dean of a top school. You can't belittle yourself in the future. We didn't actually do anything. We just fought with him. Ruo Lan said. Already? There's no suspense. When the time comes, you might all be shocked, Ruo Xian said coldly. As she spoke, she glanced at the fatty. Her eyes were full of extraordinary splendor, blooming with unconcealable admiration. If that's the case, I'm looking forward to it even more. The dean was surprised and pleasantly surprised. Chen Hao shrugged and went directly to see Xian, Ao Qian, and the others. Then, under Cheng Wanxiang's lead, they went to Deer Chaser Peak. It's about to start. Wake up, you two, Buzz? After the new Sword King Chen Taishu finished speaking, Miao Xian and Qin Yang's voices appeared in front of him. Master doesn't ask for much. Top 50. You just need to be in the top 50. Top 50? Master, are you kidding? Miao Xian said in surprise. With my junior sister and my strength, we have a chance of being in the top 3, right, Master? Qin Yang smiled and said confidently. If it's the level of the previous batch or the level of the previous 100 batches, the two of you have a great chance of being first or second. But now that the Grand Mist era has arrived, this batch is much stronger. There are also too many unknowns. Just the aura of the applicants collected by the token alone has revealed many monstrous masters who don't belong to any school or faction. Chapter 1403. Master, could it be that we didn't even get a seed? Qin Yang frowned. That's not the case. It would be too exaggerated if the two of you weren't in the top 1,000. What about that fatty? Miao Xian couldn't help but ask. After asking, her face turned red. It was obvious that her subconscious mind had affected her. Of course he is here. Master said that he is not worse than the two of you. Moreover, he has a lot of room for improvement. Yes, Master is very satisfied with this Tu Su. This year's individual ranking competition is destined to be the most exciting one. Don't be discouraged because of Master's words. The reason why Master said top 50 is because he doesn't want you to fight so hard for a ranking. That's meaningless. As long as you do your best, it is possible for you to enter the top 10 or even higher. After all, the token only counts one's aura and not one's combat power. Master, we understand. That's good. Let's go. Chi. Chen Tai Su brought the two of them into the air and stepped onto Zhulu Peak. Seed? Damn. Amazing. Brother Fatty is mighty. Awesome. Too awesome. Brother Fatty is actually a seed. By the time Cheng Wanxiang led the group to Deer Chaser Peak, Chen Hao's name, portrait, and information about his school and group were all displayed at the bottom of a huge pagoda stele at the entrance. Even though it was at the bottom of the pagoda, it was enough to shock the people from Daihua School. A seeded player. Moreover, he was the first seeded player in Group 954. Top 1,000. Brother Fatty's combat power is estimated to be 954. Yes. Although it is not the real combat power, the evaluation of the judges is not too far off. If nothing goes wrong, Brother Fatty will definitely enter the top 1,000. Definitely. This also means that our Daihua school has the necessary conditions to enter the top school. Not only the students, but even the teachers of Daihua school were surprised. The individual ranking competition was divided into 1,000 groups. Each group had 10 seeds. Among the 10 seeded players, the first-ranked player was a member of the top 1,000 according to the information. Chen Hao was the first seeded contestant in Group 954, which meant that he was ranked 954 according to the evaluation. The other 9 seeded players in the group were the top 10 experts that had been evaluated by the group. While everyone was pleasantly surprised, only Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian shook their heads slightly. They didn't seem to care about everyone's surprise. This was indeed the case. After more than 8 years of fighting in the immortal artifact space, no one knew Chen Hao's strength better than the two of them. 1,000 strong? Compared to the fatty's true battle prowess, this was nothing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so certain that Cheng Wanxiang was already the dean of a top academy, and they also wouldn't have said that everyone was shocked. This was just a combination of Chen Hao's performance in the team competition and the aura feedback from the token. Most importantly, the information was from 3 days ago. Today, after 3 days, Just the increase in absolute strength alone was not something that the current ranking could compare to. Only around 900? Chen Hao was surprised, not by his own strength, but by the strength of this year's contestants. But it doesn't matter. Whether I'm a seeded contestant or not, I don't need to participate in the initial group elimination matches. It's meaningless. Fatty, look over there. Si Xian suddenly transmitted her voice. Xiao Nan 923. Murong Qianhua is in the same group as Xiao Nan. What a coincidence. Chen Hao was surprised. He looked over and saw the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's pagoda monument at a glance. Chen Nan's name was the first in Group 923, and the second seeded contestant following closely behind Chen Nan was Murong Qianhua. Chi. Brother. Boss. Fatty? It was also at this moment that a group of figures suddenly arrived at lightning speed. Before they arrived, their excited voices entered Chen Hao's ears. Brother. Chen Nan, who was the fastest, threw herself into Chen Hao's arms like a child, and her eyes were filled with excitement. Good. Xiao Nan, you're stronger than your brother. Ha. Chen Hao hugged Chen Nan tightly, patted her back, and separated. He stared at the mature Chen Nan and said excitedly. Chen Nan's aura was very strong, which made Chen Hao feel gratified. At the same time, he became more eager to step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. He was the big brother, the boss, and had the responsibility to protect his brothers and sisters. How could he fall behind in terms of cultivation level? Boss. Master. How? Fatty? Pan Long and the other girls arrived one by one and looked at Chen Hao excitedly, but they all retained a trace of restraint. Under the surprised gazes of the people from the University of Dea, they did not act like Chen Nan, who had arrived first. Buzz. Chen Hao directly released a wave of energy, which instantly shielded all of them temporarily and connected their minds. The people from the University of Dea, who were already a little dumbfounded and staring in shock, suddenly fell silent. It was only at this moment that they came to their senses. Oh my God, aren't they all the top geniuses from Parkway Academy, Daluo Golden Wonderland and Grand Mist Supremacy Realm? Why do they all know Fatty Bro? Did you hear that? They call Fatty Bro boss, master, bro? And the way those beautiful girls look at Fatty Bro. Their expressions were filled with disbelief. Parkway Academy, in the team competition, especially in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, could be said to be in the limelight. Because of the huge number of beautiful girls, it attracted the attention of everyone. How could the people from the University of Dea not see it? But now, they were all excitedly appearing in front of Fatty Bro. Moreover, with one look, it was obvious that Fatty Bro was the core of all of them. Even Chin Nan, Itoda, Pan Long, Du Jing, and the others, who were all geniuses from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, were no exception. Xiao Nan, isn't that Chin Nan? He's the top seed in the same group as Brother Morong. Ah, that's right. His name, profile picture, and the academy he's from are all the same. Chen Nan seems to be Fatty Bro's underling? Someone in the crowd suddenly noticed Chen Nan, who was on the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's list, and discussed. This made everyone's gaze involuntarily turn to Murong Qianhua. Murong Qianhua, who was a little proud of being able to become a seed player, had his face darkened. Fatty Bro's underling was ranked in front of him. How could he show his face? This was really a blow to him. It's just aura, just aura. How can I be inferior to his underling? I can definitely make it to the top 1,000. I'm the captain of Starlight, the strongest team on planet Great Hua. My combat strength can't be measured by aura. Although the evaluation of the arbitration team doesn't differ much every year, there is always a person who differs greatly. And I, Murong Qianhua, am such a person. Murong Qianhua roared in his heart. Xian Yuanshan and Tang, who also had gloomy faces, and their faces were dark. Now, especially when they saw so many top geniuses and beautiful girls from Parkway Academy coming to find Fatty Bro, and Rua Lan and Rua Xian specially training Fatty Bro, they had to admit that Fatty Bro, who was one level lower than them, had suppressed them in all aspects. Chapter 1404. Dean Cheng Wanxiang's ears perked up, and his mind had even silently fused into the barrier around Chen Hao. However, to his surprise, a dignified true immortal king like him was actually unable to capture the information that Chen Hao and the others were communicating with each other. Mo Shilin, Ruo Xian, Ruo Lan, and the other experts were similarly shocked. They also couldn't hold back their curiosity and wanted to eavesdrop on Chen Hao and the others' conversation. However, like the dean, they couldn't obtain anything. This made everyone feel that the fatty's concealment ability was incredible, and they also looked forward to Chen Hao's performance in the following individual ranking competition. After a few minutes, Chen Hao finally removed the seal. He smiled and excitedly introduced Qin Nan, Qin Shui, and the others to Cheng Wanxiang. At the same time, Chen Hao also introduced Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Shui Fian, and the others to the others. Wan Yishui handed them over to Si Xian, who quietly explained to the girls. Just as everyone was about to temporarily bid farewell to Chen Hao and return to Parkway Academy's team, the space rippled, and 3 figures directly appeared in front of everyone like ghosts. Sword King. At this moment, countless people instantly cried out in surprise. Greetings, Senior Chen. Even Cheng Wanxiang and the others hurriedly bowed after a short moment of surprise. Greetings, Senior Chen. The young disciples all bowed respectfully. No need to be so polite. Chen Taishu smiled and nodded slightly at Chen Hao. His gaze swept over Qin Nan, Qin Shui, Qin Yan, Hu Mainyang, Bailey Ningbing and the others, and he kept nodding. His gaze was filled with the feeling of a senior examining a junior. Chen Nan was fine, but Qin Shui and the others were a little embarrassed by his gaze. They all lowered their heads, and they were even more surprised. This was one of the existences that all cultivators in the great world of Xiandi had to look up to. Why was he so concerned about them? At the same time, the girls also noticed another pair of eyes with faint hostility and examination. It was the eyes of a peerless beauty with an extremely powerful aura. Naturally, it was Miao Xian. In addition, everyone realized that Qin Yang, who was smiling but standing proudly like a sword, had many similarities with Chen Nan's aura. Qin Yang was indeed looking at Chen Nan with a smile, and there was a sense of mutual appreciation. Not bad, huh? Little fatty, you're really lucky. Yep, absolute power had indeed increased. Very good. However, I'm afraid that there will be a lot of monstrous geniuses emerging this time. The top 10 will be under a lot of pressure, especially when it comes to Sword Dao. Ahem. Chen Hao coughed awkwardly and couldn't help but glance at Miao Xian. Pumph. Miao Xian coldly snorted and turned her face to the side. Originally, it was nothing much. However, Miao Xian's actions were so obvious. Moreover, it was the action of a young girl flirting. This made the instincts of women who were afraid immediately feel that something was amiss. However, the old man thinks highly of you. Work hard. Sword King Chen Taishu acted as if he was just passing by. After he finished speaking, he left with Miao Xian and Qin Yang. Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. The pressure that the Sword King imperceptibly brought to everyone was too great. But before they could finish their breaths, an aura that wasn't inferior to the Sword King's suddenly appeared, surrounded by many graceful figures. Junior Cheng Wanxiang pays his respects to King Ying. Greetings to King Ying. Shocked voices rang out. No one dared to look directly at her. King Ying. Only Chen Hao and Si Xian were slightly excited as they looked at this woman who had a graceful bearing and didn't seem to have many traces of age on her body. Chen Nan and the rest didn't feel this way. Because Yi Lan didn't tell them about King Ying. No need for formalities. Principal Cheng, congratulations on your Dehua Academy's promotion to the top academy. Moreover, your ranking won't be too low. You flatter me, King Ying. The individual competition hasn't ended yet. It's hard to predict. This little fatty didn't even have a hard time entering the top 100. What's so hard to predict? Unfortunately, he's a guy. Principal Cheng, I'm here to ask for a disciple. Is that possible? King Ying, you're too polite. If you like, our Dehua Academy will let you choose. As long as they agree, this junior will be more than happy. Chen Wanxiang said excitedly. Who wouldn't want their disciple to enter the Jade Girl Palace? And Chen Wanxiang knew who King Ying was here for. Chen Si, are you willing to join our Jade Girl Palace? If you join, I can take. This disciple is willing. Chen Si didn't wait for King Ying to tempt her and said directly. King Ying was slightly surprised. After all, Chen Si practiced the 9 lives profound technique. Even the Star River King wanted her, but Chen Si agreed so easily. Good, come with me now. In the individual competition, I'll let you get a good result for the Hua Academy. This, go. Chen Hao suddenly grabbed Si Xian's hand and held it tightly. Immediately, he stared at Si Xian and said, others didn't see anything strange, but King Ying's delicate body inexplicably trembled. Her eyes looked at Chen Hao in surprise and looked at his hand holding Si Xian's hand. Buzz. King Ying disappeared on the spot and appeared beside Si Xian. He grabbed Si Xian's hand that was held by Chen Hao and said, good, little fatty, are you her Dao companion? You've paid a lot for me to take her away. When the individual ranking competition is over, I'll compensate you. At that time, I'll look for you. No one saw or felt that when King Ying held Si Xian's hand, he had isolated all aura and blocked Si Xian's hand. To be precise, he blocked the thing in Si Xian's hand and the thing Chen Hao gave him. After saying that, King Ying left with Si Xian. No one knew how excited King Ying was in the depths of her heart. This was something she didn't expect at all. Although Si Xian's body contained a trace of her bloodline aura, which made her think of a possibility, she didn't expect it to come so directly and so quickly. The purple crystal jade pendant, the jade pendant with her name engraved on it, which symbolized her and Yi Lan's love token, had appeared. How could she not be excited? However, there were too many people watching now. She could only pretend that she didn't know and leave. The reason why she promised to give the little fatty benefits was definitely not because she said it out loud, but because the jade pendant was in the little fatty's hand. This was enough to prove that the little fatty was also one of Yi Lan's people. How could she not care? King Ying, this is King Ying, he actually rewarded you? Haha, little fatty, looks like your luck is really awesome. King Ying said that you'd have no problem entering the top 100, and the Sword King favors you even more. He said that you'd be pressured to enter the top 10 in the way of the sword? Chen Wanxiang was thoroughly excited. His luck is really extraordinary. However, if he's worthy, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian looked at each other and conversed. They knew very well that if Chen Hao's true identity was exposed, the luck he would receive would be much more than this. Chen Qi Lu Hui. After Chen Nan and the other girls had left, Chen Hao was finally able to take a closer look at the names of the seeded contestants. Very quickly, he found 2 names among the seeded contestants who weren't first in their groups. Their avatars were undoubtedly the same as their academy names. This clearly told Chen Hao that they were his 7th life and the little nurse, Lu Hui. Similarly, Chen Shui, Heli and Wuzi and Hu Meinyang were also among the seeded contestants. However, they weren't first in their groups. Chapter 1405. In the Immortal Realm, the groups of the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, as well as the seeded contestants of each group, were displayed on the huge display screen in the square. Chen Wuliang and the other 2 were surprised and excited when they saw that Chen Nan had been evaluated as one of the top 1,000 in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. This was a better result than Chen Hao. After all, he was 1 level higher. That was why they were surprised. In their minds, Chen Hao's monstrous talent was not something that Chen Nan could compare with. It was not surprising that Chen Nan was the first to step into the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. After all, many monstrous talents deliberately stayed in the Daluo Golden Wonderland for a long time. However, Chen Nan's combat strength had been evaluated as one of the top 1,000, which surprised the 3 of them. Could it be that their son had awakened some powerful talent? In their opinion, this was the only possibility. At the same time, it made them look forward to the upcoming ranking matches even more. They knew that the evaluation of combat strength relied more on one's aura, which did not completely represent one's true combat strength. Chi, what a terrifying aura. Chen Hao and the others finally stepped into the huge training field of Deer Chaser Peak. Unlike the team competition, the training field was now completely connected and had become an independent, peculiar five-fold grotto heaven. The moment they stepped in, everyone was shocked by the terrifying battle intent that filled the void. Boom, boom, boom. The cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland could not help but arouse their battle intent. This was just an invisible release of a cultivator. However, due to the large number of cultivators, it formed a terrifying battle intent that made all the cultivators' battle intent soar. This is the outermost layer of the five-fold grotto heaven, which is the first layer. It's the spectator layer. The second layer is the preliminary round of the elimination round. 1,000 groups are evenly distributed on the second layer. The top 100,000 people from each group will step into the third layer to continue the competition. At this time, the first layer of the spectator layer will merge with the second layer, and the spectators can approach as they wish. Up to the fifth level, which is the core arena, the top 100 will be ranked. Those who can enter the third layer will be in the top 100,000, those who can enter the fourth layer will be in the top 1,000, and those who can enter the fifth layer will be in the top 100. Old Man hopes that all of you can reach the fifth level. Unfortunately, that's impossible. For our University of Dahua, it's already a huge success if even one person can reach the fourth level. All right, contestants of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, let's move on. All disciples of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm and the rest of us will stay here and watch the battle for now. Of course, if you want to cultivate, you can also step into your Pavilion Master's mind space. However, Old Man doesn't recommend you to do so. In the competition of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, especially the experts, they are not necessarily inferior to those of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. Watching them fight will be very helpful to your cultivation. This is a rare opportunity. Well, little fatty, you Daluo Golden Celestials can go to the second level. After you arrive, your tokens will receive the grouping information and automatically send you to the competition area where you are. Most of you should know this, so you have to be mentally prepared. Although the preliminary elimination round was divided into 1,000 groups, the number of contestants was simply too large. Although many people knew that there was no hope for them to advance and that it was very likely that they would die in the competition, there were still countless cultivators participating in the great world of Xiandi. Confidence, luck, and experience. Even if it was just to feel the aura of the largest competition in the vast 1,000 worlds, it was worth it. With such a large number of contestants, it was destined that it would be impossible to fight one-on-one in the preliminary elimination round. Even with the existence of the law of space and time, it was not something that could be completed in a year or so. Therefore, the preliminary round was a free-for-all battle within the area. When one felt that it was too difficult to endure, one could give up. The token would directly activate the protection function and send one out, ending one's journey in the competition. However, even so, many cultivators were unable to react in time and would die under the terrifying moves. This was the cruelty of free-for-all battles. However, during the battle, if two people had already started fighting, the third party could attack, but not just one person. If they wanted to attack, they had to attack both parties at the same time. One person could challenge many people, but many people could not take the initiative to attack one person at the same time unless the other party took the initiative to challenge many people. This was also to prevent people from forming cliques in the free-for-all battles and lose the fairness of the competition. Everyone replied in unison. Go. Pissed. Pissed, pissed, pissed. Let's go. Chen Hao, Wan Yishui, Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, Su Tao, Yin Su, and the others from the Carnage Battle team turned into a stream of light and took the lead to enter the second level. Buzz. When they came into contact with the barrier of the second level, their tokens automatically emitted rays of golden light. After verifying their identities, they directly entered the second level. Brother Fatty, see you on the third level. Okay. Enveloped by the golden light, the aura of spatial distortion began to spread. The tokens were about to send them to their respective areas. At this moment, Ao Qian and Ling Feng said confidently. Although Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Wan Yishui were not seeded contestants like Chen Hao, they were seeded contestants in the top 10 of their groups. In terms of combat strength, they were within the top 100,000, especially Wan Yishui, who was ranked second in Group 103. This was also very strong. Buzz. Pist pist pist. Immediately, the golden light flashed and the disciples of the University of Dehua disappeared. Buzz. Soon after, Chen Hao appeared in the area where Team 954 was located amidst a series of space-time distortions. At the same time, a golden number, 1, appeared between his eyebrows. The first seeded contestant, Li Yuan from the University of Dehua, is here. Top 1000, the first seeded contestant in our group. However, I think it will be difficult for him to enter the top 1000. Why? It's very simple. Our headmaster said that there were many experts who didn't belong to any academy or major faction in the individual competition. They didn't have any information about them before, so their strength was only assessed based on the aura in their tokens. Li Yuan's comprehension of the barrier in the group competition was the highest this year, and it was twice as high as the previous records, so there was no doubt that this was a bonus point. This means that his aura will not be very strong. You can feel it, and that is the truth. Then his combat strength may not be very strong. After all, aura and comprehension cannot completely represent one's combat strength. That makes sense. His aura is indeed not very strong. He is only slightly stronger than us. As soon as Chen Hao stood still, all eyes were fixed on the dazzling number 1 between his eyebrows. This was the symbol of the first seeded contestant in the group. Chen Hao also heard the probing aura and discussions. This made Chen Hao frown slightly. However, he immediately felt relieved. As the first seeded contestant, the others had nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 1406. The reason was simple. In the competition, the seeded contestants were not really not participating in the competition. Instead, they were marked to tell everyone what the seeded contestant was in their group, so that people would think twice before making a move. This was because the seeded contestants could not take the initiative to attack others. Unless someone deliberately provoked them, they would not even have a chance to fight. Among the seeded contestants, the lower-ranked contestants could challenge the higher-ranked contestants. For example, the number 10 seeded contestant could challenge the number 1 Chen Hao. This meant that Chen Hao, who was the number 1 seeded contestant in the group, would not take the initiative to attack anyone. In such a situation, what was there to be afraid of? What a troublesome rule. Chen Hao shrugged and glanced at the cultivators around him with a smile. He did not seem to care. However, he was used to keeping a low profile. Before entering the second floor, he had restrained his aura to the state he had been in 3 days ago. Because of this, these cultivators felt that Chen Hao's aura was not very strong. At this time, a few disciples from the University of Cathay appeared beside Chen Hao. There were a total of 1,000 groups. There were tens of thousands of disciples from the University of Cathay who had signed up for the individual ranking competition. It was normal for them to be assigned to Chen Hao's group. When Chen Hao scanned the surroundings, most of the cultivators who had gathered in groups of 3 to 5 avoided his gaze. After all, even if Chen Hao couldn't enter the top 1,000 in the end, he was still not someone they could compete with. Discussions were discussions, but there was no need to provoke him, nor did they dare to. However, a young man who was surrounded by several male and female cultivators looked directly at Chen Hao. He snorted and said with disdain and provocation, "Do you really think you are the number 1? There was a big 2 between the young man's eyebrows. He was the number 2 seeded contestant in the group. 2? Xiao Manyun? When Chen Hao saw the number 2, he was stunned. He seemed to be quite surprised, but he tried hard to suppress the urge to laugh out loud. He said the name of the other person. Chen Hao had already seen this name on the pagoda stele at the entrance of Zhulu Peak. Xiao Manyun, a disciple of the Celestial River King's Xiao clan, was ranked behind him. When he saw this name, Chen Hao concluded that he should be a direct descendant of the Xiao clan like Xiao Mantian. As for whether he was Xiao Mantian's brother or cousin, it was not something that Chen Hao could guess. That's right, Xiao Manyun said proudly. You and Xiao Mantian are brothers, right? Chen Hao asked with a smile. However, what Chen Hao did not expect was that as soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Manyun's face turned red. His eyes were about to spit fire, and his veins were popping out. Many of the surrounding cultivators also exclaimed in shock as they looked at the fatty. It was as if Chen Hao had revealed some earth-shattering secret that shocked everyone. Alright, let's see who's more qualified to be number one later. Don't worry if I, Xiao Manyun, don't challenge you, humph. Cough cough. I say, brother, Xiao Mantian and I are as close as blood brothers. Can you give me some face? It doesn't matter if you are number one or not. It's just an empty title. To you and me, it's an extremely simple matter. I hope that we can get along well and just watch the show. Xiao Mantian and I are brothers, good brothers, even closer than blood brothers. What do you think? Shut up. If you have the guts, fight to the death with me later, I will kill you. No one dares to mention him in front of me. No one. Xiao Manyun almost roared. Did I say something wrong? Chen Hao seemed to be surprised. In actual fact, when he mentioned Xiao Mantian, from Xiao Manyun's attitude and the reactions of the surrounding people, he could feel that Xiao Mantian and Xiao Mantian had a deep grudge, but he pretended not to know. Of course, Chen Hao really didn't know what grudge Xiao Mantian and Xiao Mantian had. Brother Fatty, be careful, Xiao Mantian is very strong. You shouldn't have angered him. Don't tell me you don't know that Xiao Mantian and Xiao Mantian are rivals? At this moment, a student from the University of Dehua who was in Chen Hao's group suddenly transmitted his voice to Chen Hao. What grudge? I really didn't know. Chen Hao said. Xiao Mantian's Dao companion Feng Hanwei originally belonged to Xiao Mantian, but Xiao Mantian stole her away. The hatred of stealing his wife, that could be said to be the most humiliating thing for Xiao Mantian, but that was 10,000 years ago. Back then, the two of them had a public duel in the divine realm. No wonder. But it doesn't matter, I have nothing to do anyway. Chen Hao smiled and transmitted his voice to Xiao Mantian. Then he looked toward Xiao Mantian and cupped his fists awkwardly. I'm sorry, I really didn't know that Xiao Mantian stole your Dao companion. As the saying goes, one shouldn't steal a friend's wife, much less a brother's wife. He actually bullied, rode, and took her for himself. That's too much. I'm not looking for trouble, but if I were you, I would definitely fight him to the death. That's such a big cuckold, it's too much. How can I say that to my friend? Sorry, just pretend I didn't say anything. Pooh! This Li Yuan is really ruthless. This Li Yuan doesn't seem to be afraid of Xiao Mantian. This is going to be interesting. That's right, and no matter who is more powerful, they will have to give up a spot. The last 10 seeded contestants will have a battle royale. That's even better, our chances of qualifying will be higher. Ha! In the vast space, Xiao Mantian's battle intent and killing intent rose crazily, and he couldn't wait to kill Chen Hao immediately. But at this moment, before the competition started, no one was allowed to make a move. Otherwise, they would be kicked out and lose the right to participate in the competition. Group 954, let's go to Fatty's group and take a look. What's there to look at? Fatty is the first seeded contestant in the group. I'm afraid no one will dare to provoke him. They won't even have a chance to make a move. Not necessarily. The second seeded contestant is Xiao Mantian, a direct descendant of the Xiao family, the Xing River King. So what? It's just a battle royale. Although the disciples of the Xiao family are arrogant, they won't go as far as to provoke Fatty, right? That's true. The preliminary round is indeed boring, so let's just look around casually. There are many beauties and exciting places. That's where we will go. Let's go, let's split up, and remember to inform us of the interesting places. But swoosh, 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 swoosh. After Chen Hao and the others stepped into the second level, the cultivators of the University of Dehua were teleported to the first level of the observation space with their tokens. They only needed to activate their tokens and enter the number of the group, and they would be teleported to the area near the barrier of the corresponding group. Chapter 1407. Chen Wanxiang, Ruo Lan, Ruo Xian, and Imo Shilin of the True Martial Pavilion all chose Chen Hao's group. At their level, there was no point in watching such a competition. Of course, they chose Chen Hao, who they cared about the most. Chi. Here. Chen Nan, Pan Long, and the other brothers and sisters who had already entered the Grand Mist Supremacy realm naturally rushed to Chen Hao's group. They wanted to know how strong Chen Hao, who was only Chen Hao in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, was. That was the goal that all of them were chasing, the idol in their hearts, their boss. They believed that Chen Hao was not as simple as he appeared to be. This was the conclusion that they had come to after experiencing countless proofs. Their boss could never be measured by appearances. Phew, I really hope that boss will always be this chubby and cute. That way, I'll look much more handsome, hee. Lan Feng chuckled as he locked onto Chen Hao's figure through the barrier. It's useless. It's just a facade. Didn't you see boss like this? Didn't he take care of teachers Si Xian and that Wan Yishui? Moreover, I think boss should have taken care of all the female disciples of the Sword King Chen Taishu. What should have? Definitely. It shouldn't be wrong. She looked at me with an undetectable hostility. Maybe she thinks I'm Big Brother's cultivation partner. Qinling said. Okay. At this moment, Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian suddenly appeared beside Chen Nan and the others. Ruo Lan even greeted them with a smile. Hello, teachers. Chen Nan and the others had met Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian before. When Chen Hao introduced Din Ching Wanxiang, he also introduced the two of them. Moreover, everyone could feel that these two beautiful young teachers treated Chen Hao very well. Li Yuan, oh no, Chen something, perhaps you really want to join our Dehua Academy. Are you interested? You're now disciples of Parkway Academy, and our Dehua Academy can't compare to you. However, after this ranking competition, Dehua Academy will also be a top academy. Our conditions will be greatly improved. The only thing we lack compared to Parkway Academy is our foundation. Teacher Rualan, you don't need to say anything more. After the competition, we'll be free. We will all follow my brother. Chen Nan's expression was as tranquil as water as she said calmly. Du's state of mind was not at all affected by the two teachers' powerful auras. That's great. Great. Cheng Wanxiang suddenly appeared, he suddenly appeared, suddenly, and the others of Lan and the others. Yes, Din Cheng. Chen Nan didn't seem to be surprised by Cheng Wanxiang's sudden appearance at all. But, therefore, when he saw Cheng Wanxiang appear, he immediately spoke up. Don't worry, even if you don't say anything, old man won't mistreat you. Chi. Suddenly, a few figures appeared in front of them in a flash, causing Chen Nan and the others to be slightly puzzled. After all, in such a vast space, if they did not know each other, they would have to keep a certain distance. However, these cultivators from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm had appeared directly in front of them. Hey, shut up you pervert, I'll say it. Another voice interrupted a sissy. Excuse me, are you the Dean of Dehua Academy, Senior Cheng Wanxiang? That's right, you are? Cheng Wanxiang looked at the 10 people in front of him, slightly puzzled, and asked. The sissy who spoke first exuded a majestic vitality that was shockingly pure, and his aura was extremely strong. The young man who interrupted him and the other 8 people also had a strong aura. If they were in Dehua Academy, they would definitely be among the top. We're Li Yuan's friends, Yin Xian? Zhou Qinglong? It's you. Itoda suddenly patted his head and shouted, Do you still remember me? Hey, aren't you little whites? Itoda? Pervert, I didn't expect you to remember me. Long time no see. Why, are you also here to watch boss's competition? Itoda had met Zhou Qinglong and the others in the Hongmeng domain of the chaotic boundless world. However, at this moment, Zhou Qinglong, Yin Xian, and the others had disguised their appearances and auras, so Itoda did not recognize them directly. We're not just here to watch Brother Chen's competition. After the competition, we'll follow him. Yin Xian said. You are also going to join Dehua Academy? Are you also little fatty's friends? Cheng Wanxiang's old face showed a trace of excitement again. Dean Cheng, we're all the top 100 disciples in the top Red Cloud Academy. We're also Li Yuan's brothers. Yin Xian said. In the team competition, when Shenhao's fifth life, the Tree of Life, left the team on its own accord after receiving the order of Chen Hao's origin, the fifth life told them about his true situation and the situation they were about to face. Chen Shuxing did not return until the end of the fifth life, which made Zhou Qinglong and the others aware that Chen Shuxing would not appear again. They followed Chen Shuxing's information and went to look for the little fatty Li Yuan from the University of Taoism, who was also Chen Hao, the one who had been in contact with them in the vast thousand worlds. Well, you're very welcome. Cheng Wanxiang stroked his long beard and laughed. This situation made Cheng Wanxiang look forward to little fatty's ability even more. He was very clear that a genius who could conquer so many geniuses, who were now one realm higher than him, must have extremely powerful ability that was enough to convince these people wholeheartedly. Otherwise, he would not be able to do this. There was another point. To judge whether a man was strong or not, one only needed to look at his women to know. How many Taoist companions did little fatty have? Moreover, each of his Taoist companions was an outstanding talent. Come on, let me introduce you. From now on, we'll be good brothers. Ito Kenta introduced everyone enthusiastically. The time has come. The individual ranking competition will officially begin. The rules of the competition are as follows. A magnificent voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. The host repeated the rules of the competition and the precautions that had to be taken in every competition. At this time, a huge screen in the square in the immortal realm began to switch the areas of the 1,000 groups. The screen was locked on the first seeded player of each group, and there was a voice introduction. Chapter 1408. In the first group, the first seeded contestant is Chen Tianhe, the top student of Zhulu Academy, the direct disciple of the Star River King. He is ranked first in the evaluation. He is one of the most promising contestants to win the championship. In the second group, the first seeded contestant is Xiao Jiutian, the direct disciple of the Star River King's Xiao family. He is ranked second in the evaluation and is also the most promising contestant to win the championship. Every introduction caused cheers in the immortal world. Although these were not the final results, the overall difference between the evaluation results and the final ranking was very small. Therefore, those who were first introduced at this time were undoubtedly the top monsters in the great world of Xiandi. In the 16th group, the first seeded contestant is Miao Xian, a disciple of Zhulu Academy, the body of the Sword Emperor, the direct disciple of the new generation Sword King, Qin Taishu. She is expected to compete for the top 10 or even higher. Voila, Miao Xian's image and her introduction caused a huge sensation. The power of a beautiful genius was indeed much stronger than the average person. Only the first 100 contestants were introduced, which were the top-seeded contestants of the first 100 groups. What really surprised the people of the great world of Xiandi was that half of the 100 contestants were young cultivators who had just been born. Their evaluation was only based on the most basic aura of the token. Therefore, when introducing these people, they all used a sentence. The evaluation may have a big deviation. Many of them even used the soul of all creation. This made everyone clearly feel that the evaluation of this year's ranking might have a big deviation compared to the previous years. The great era had arrived, the Emperor Star Group had appeared, and the soul of all creation had been born one after another. Let the competition begin. Boom boom boom, kill. As soon as the host gave the command, the area where the 1,000 groups were located directly erupted. No one dared to hesitate, and no one had the mentality of sitting on top of the mountain and watching the tigers fight. This was because every time a cultivator eliminated an opponent, the token would automatically release energy to replenish the cultivator's essence, energy, and true essence to the peak state. Therefore, there was no point in running away. It was wiser to choose a suitable opponent first. Of course, If someone wanted to use the rules to cheat, for example, if two people colluded and didn't make a move, they would just fight to buy time and let the others be eliminated. In the end, they would become one of the top 100 members. This was also impossible. The token would make a judgment based on one's combat strength. If the two of them continuously fell below the basic standard, the two of them would be disqualified. Die! Boom boom boom. In Qinhao's group area, Xiao Manyun did not hesitate at all. The moment the match began, he raised his strength to its peak state and violently rushed towards Qinhao. No way, fuck, this is intense. Xiao Manyun actually dared to provoke Hua Liyuan directly. The direct descendants of the Xiao clan are really crazy. Isn't it just a group ranking? It won't affect them at all, but they still have to fight to qualify. You can't say that. Don't you understand that experts are lonely? People who like to fight can't stay idle. Moreover, if he can defeat the first seeded contestant, he might be the seeded contestant of the new group in the next round. That's true. However, I feel that it's really unnecessary. If he has the strength, he can unleash it when he needs to. It won't affect anything at all. Why bother? What if Hua Liyuan is stronger than him? After all, the one evaluating him is Li Yuanxiang. The cultivators in group 954 started to discuss among themselves. Cheng Wanxiang and the rest frowned and looked at Xiao Manyun unhappily. This was simply a lunatic. Was he crazy? Group competition, what was there to provoke? However, this was the rule and no one could stop it. Quick, group 954, second-seeded Xiao Manyun is provoking first-seeded Hua Liyuan. Ah? So intense? I'll be there soon. It can't be, right? Alright, I'll be there soon. Hua Liyuan, the one with the highest comprehension ability, we must watch. The situation in group 954 was directly transmitted through the cultivators. Chi chi chi. In an instant, rays of golden light flashed, and countless cultivators gathered in the spectator area where group 954 was at. The Xiao clan's Xiao Manyun was the same as Xiao Mantian. They were both well-known figures in the great thousand immortal world of the immortal emperors. On the other hand, Li Yuan of the Dehua Academy was the biggest dark horse in this year's tournament. He ranked first in terms of individual comprehension in the team competition. It could be said that he single-handedly led the Dehua Academy into the top 100. He could definitely be called the one with the highest comprehension ability. This kind of battle was naturally very attractive. After a while, the countless city squares in the celestial world started to broadcast the battle between Xiao Manyun and Fatty Li Yuan. This is luck, right? No matter where I go, whether it's intentional or not, I will become the center of attention. Xiao Manyun from the Xiao family is destined to be the stepping stone to increase my brother's fame. Chen Nan thought to himself. There was not a hint of worry in his eyes. Even if Xiao Manyun's attack was extremely terrifying, and Chen Hao seemed to be stunned as he looked at Xiao Manyun. He was intimidated by Xiao Manyun's aura, but it did not affect his judgment. That was because he was very clear that his brother had never been frightened by danger. That was just his brother's way of confusing the enemy, even though Chen Nan felt that his brother did not need to do that at all. Brother Xiao, is there a need? Fatty suddenly said. At the same time, he quickly retreated and avoided Xiao Manyun's violent attack. I really did not know that you have such a huge grudge with Brother Mantian. As the saying goes, don't hit someone's face when you hit someone, and don't expose someone's shortcomings when you scold someone. If I knew that he had snatched your cultivation partner, why would I mention him? Ugh. Shut up, I'm going to kill you. Boom. Chi chi chi. Xiao Manyun was almost driven mad by Fatty. At this time, Fatty still put on an innocent look and exposed the biggest scar in his heart in front of everyone. Furthermore, he knew that if the second person challenged the first person, he would probably become the target of the entire immortal world. In other words, Chen Hao's words were equivalent to telling everyone in the great world of Xiandi that his cultivation partner had been snatched away by someone else. So, Brother Xiao, I have a lot of respect for the Star River King. Ever since I stepped into the cultivation world, he has become my idol. I don't want to make a move on his bloodline. Don't force me, okay? You have to believe that I really did not know that you and Xiao Mantian. Shut up. Alright, I just want to tell you that I have only been in the great world of Xiandi for a very short time. There are many things that I don't know. I only met brother Xiao Mantian when we invited him to participate in the Emperor's Star's secret realm. Do you really want to fight with me? If there's you, then there's me. If there's me, then there's you. If you have the guts, then fight to the death with me. Chapter 1409. Do you really have to do this? The fatty's face became a little dignified and conflicted. In the eyes of others, the fatty naturally did not want to go against the powerful Xiao clan disciple, and at the same time, he must be a little afraid of Xiao Manyun. Otherwise, he would definitely not be like this. Xiao Manyun also thought so, and did not put Chen Hao in his eyes. However, the fatty's dodging speed was beyond his imagination, and his pressure was obviously unable to imprison Chen Hao. This made him dare not let his guard down. Don't be long-winded anymore. Soon you will see the real killing move of my Xiao clan. Xiao Manyun said coldly as he approached and attacked step by step. As expected of a Xiao clan disciple. He is obviously enraged, but he can still be so rational. Cheng Wanxiang frowned, but he was not very worried. Because at this moment, Chen Hao's aura was not at its strongest state at all. Yes, although he is angry, he is still cautious. He said this to intimidate the little fatty, so that he will be timid in the battle and be prepared to deal with his big move at all times. The corner of Ruoxian's mouth raised slightly with a touch of disdain, and she said lightly, "Unfortunately, he used the wrong person. Ruoxian, it seems that the two of you are satisfied with the effect of his special training. You will be surprised, Dean." Rulin smiled slightly and said mysteriously, "Well, in that case, I will send you out. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance." Chen Hao's deliberate posture was enough, and even the Star River King could not say anything. It was completely Xiao Manyun who had pushed him too far. And this was undoubtedly what Chen Hao wanted. He, who was weak, had to be wary of the Star River King's Xiao clan. After all, this was just the beginning. In the end, in this year's ranking competition, he would have to fight to the death with Chen Tianhe, who was the direct disciple of the Star River King. With Chen Hao's words, Chen Hao, who had been dodging and retreating, finally stopped retreating and drew his sword. "I'll ask you one last time. Are you sure you can't stop fighting?" An incomparably sharp sword intent bloomed from the fatty's fat body. At this moment, in the eyes of the crowd, the fatty's figure was ignored. They felt that he was an incomparably sharp sword. Man, sword, and heaven as one. So strong. What a terrifying sword Dao realm. He has completely surpassed the limits of his own realm. Moreover, there is no need for him to adjust at all. He has directly entered the state of mind where he is one with the sword. He is simply too strong. I never thought that Dehua Li Yuan was a pure sword puppet. That's right. A pure sword puppet is undoubtedly the strongest amongst those of the same realm. At this moment, the countless cultivators who had gathered here, as well as all the cultivators who were watching the battle in the celestial realm, were stunned by Fatty's aura. No one would have thought that the Fatty who everyone thought was afraid of Xiao Manyun wasn't really afraid, but just didn't want to make a big fuss. No one knew that the aura they felt at this moment was no different from Xiao Manyun's. In fact, Xiao Manyun did not even feel that Chen Hao's sword essence was terrifying. Xiao Manyun was so angry that his face turned purple like a pig's liver. Chen Hao's confident manner of going easy on him made him furious, and he couldn't stand it. Chen Hao was just the first seeded participant, and he actually dared to look down on him. Xiao Manyun? Devour the void. Boom. With a furious roar, Xiao Manyun circulated his power to the extreme and struck out with his palm. In an instant, with him as the starting point, the void suddenly seemed to collapse. Like a pitch-black laser beam, it broke through the air from his fist and formed a black hole. Wherever it passed, the space distorted and collapsed. A destructive will that contained an ancient aura swept through the heavens and earth. Devour the void. Only the direct disciples of the Xiao clan had the qualifications and ability to cultivate it. However, they might not be able to cultivate it successfully. When the fist was released, it didn't have the domineering aura of devouring the heavens and earth. However, it could lock onto its target and would not stop until the target was devoured. Of course, it would be a different story if it was destroyed by an even stronger force. However, Xiao Manyun didn't think that the fatty's aura could do that. This was the strongest technique that he had painstakingly mastered before this year's ranking competition. Originally, he had planned to reveal it in the later stages of the competition. But now he, who felt that he was being looked down upon, could not hold it in any longer and exploded. Devour the void? Amazing! Ah? Xiao Manyun actually cultivated the Xiao clan's Devour the Void? Not good! Countless people exclaimed. The teachers of the Dehua Academy, including Qing Wanxiang, all changed their expressions. Li Yuan of the Dehua Academy is finished. No one can avoid the Devour the Void even if they are of the same level or even slightly stronger. This is the ultimate technique that the Star River King comprehended from his bloodline origin. Good, it's best that Li Yuan is finished. The people of the Tanglong Academy gloated. However, just as the black hole-like light beam was about to land on the fatty's lips curled into a cold smile. He suddenly attacked with his sword. The incomparably sharp sword light contained a terrifying sword aura and went straight for the black light beam. Explode! At the moment when the sword light and the black hole collided, Qin Hao's clear and loud shout was heard. Rumble! Xiao Manyun felt as if his chest had been struck by lightning, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was extremely shocked. No matter what, he did not expect Qin Hao to be able to break his most powerful skill so easily with just one move. At this moment, his heart was beating violently. He was terrified and flustered. Amidst the terrifying energy explosion, a few sharp sword lights suddenly pierced through the black energy and shot towards Xiao Manyun like arrows. At this moment, Xiao Manyun felt that his soul was being imprisoned by a terrifying sword aura. He couldn't dodge it even if he wanted to. Pressure, sword aura pressure. It was also at this moment that a bright golden light suddenly poured down from Xiao Manyun's forehead, protecting him. Boom! Boom! No! Impossible! Impossible! Xiao Manyun looked at the golden light that enveloped him, and his face instantly turned pale. He roared crazily. Unfortunately, his body was completely protected by the golden light, and there was no way for him to escape. I've said it before. Xiao Mantian is my friend. Devour the void. When we sparred, I suffered a lot. Unfortunately, you're slightly weaker than Mandan. Plop. Xiao Manyun sat on the ground dejectedly. Then, as the golden light became brighter and brighter, he disappeared from the competition area. A trace of coldness flashed past Qin Hao's lips unnoticeably. If it wasn't for everyone watching, if it wasn't for Qin Hao, the killing god, how could Qin Hao be so merciful to a fool? If Qin Hao really wanted to kill Xiao Manyun, he wouldn't have allowed the protection of the token to be activated in time. However, Qin Hao couldn't do that. Qin Hao knew when to be patient and when to be fearless, so he only forced Xiao Manyun out of the elimination round, defeating the enemy with one strike. Chapter 1410. At this moment, the onlookers at the scene, the spectators in the viewing area, and the onlookers in the celestial realm all widened their eyes and mouths in shock. Silence. At this moment, it was surprisingly quiet. No one had expected Qin Hao to be so powerful. Just a moment ago, most of them thought that Qin Hao would be killed by Xiao Manyun's Void Devour. But the next moment, Qin Hao only used one sword move to break the powerful unique skill created by the Star River King. Not only that, but the remaining power of the sword even pushed Xiao Manyun to the brink of death. He activated the protection function of the token and lost the qualification to continue the competition and was eliminated. Everyone knew that if the fatty wanted to, he could definitely kill Xiao Manyun with one sword move. They were not on the same level at all. Crash. So powerful. He's too powerful. Dahlia Yuan's aura is not very strong, but his combat power is so terrifying. He even has an invincible sword move in the realm of swordsmanship. It's really incredible. No wonder he's the one with the best comprehension ability. He's really powerful. After a few seconds of silence, the crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. Countless exclamations were heard, and their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked at the figure who had sheathed his sword. If Dahlia Yuan's name was remembered by countless cultivators because he was the one with the best comprehension ability in the team competition, then Dahlia Yuan's terrifying swordsmanship strength had really made the fatty famous in the world. Because at this moment, it could be said that all the cultivators in the great world of Xiandi had their eyes on him. Good. What a little fatty. Chen Wanxiang's face was red with excitement, and he pulled his beard hard. Brother, I knew that you're the strongest. Chen Nan murmured, clenching his fists tightly. Itoda, Coiling Dragon, Du Jing, Lan Feng, Chen Ling, Pandong Lu, and all of Chen Hao's brothers and sisters were also inexplicably excited. The figure they saw was the fatty, but in their eyes, it was as if they saw the god of killing, Chen Hao, rise again and again. Just one sword strike was enough to make their blood boil. Unknowingly, they had already fallen in love with this feeling. This also made them look forward to the scene of Chen Hao competing with the real monstrous geniuses of the great world of Xiandi. Brother Xiao, I'm sorry, no one knew that the big shot sitting on the podium, the new generation sword king Chen Taishu, had suddenly cupped his fists and spoke to the celestial river king beside him. Brother Chen, why do you say that? Hee, I won't hide it from Brother Xiao. This little fatty can be considered as my disciple. Oh? Celestial River King frowned slightly and looked at Chen Taishu. It's like this. As you can see, my disciple Miao Xian is already together with him. Previously, I specially went to the University of Fine Arts to observe this little fatty. Fortunately, I was quite satisfied. He is qualified to be my Tu Shu He disciple. I didn't expect that this fellow actually eliminated Brother Zhao's junior. You're talking about this? He only has himself to blame. Brother Chen, you don't have to care about it. I said that the Shao clan's disciples will not be treated differently in the past. Not now, not in the future. As long as it is a competition within the rules, regardless of life or death, everyone will be treated equally. Brother Chen, do you really like this little fatty? In that case, I have to say the ugly words first, huh? Brother Xiao, you wouldn't have taken a fancy to this little fatty, right? Celestial River King, Brother Chen, no matter who takes a fancy to this little fatty, I will make it clear in advance. This little fatty is my disciple Chen Xi's Dao companion. Before you take him away, you have to give me a year's time. This is the compensation I promised him. To tell you the truth, if this little fatty is a woman, I will snatch him from you. To Chen Taishu and Celestial River King's surprise, King Ying interjected. However, King Ying's words made Chen Taishu very happy. This undoubtedly increased Chen Hao's bargaining chip. Celestial River King smiled slightly, looked at the two and said, you two probably didn't see that he also has the 9 lives profound technique, right? Chen Taishu and King Ying were surprised at the same time. Chen Taishu was naturally pretending, but King Ying was really surprised. He really did not see that Chen Hao had the 9 lives profound technique. So, he is the one who got your inheritance? And he taught Chen Xi? King Ying said, no, he still did not get my inheritance, but he comprehended it himself. It is different from mine, but it is much stronger than Chen Xi's. This little fatty's comprehension is really strong. Ying, Brother Chen, what I want to say is, his life is already my disciple. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happens, they will meet in this ranking competition. As for who will fuse with who, it will depend on who is stronger. Before this, I have already severed the link between his life and his origin. The strong will be the one in charge. This is also the highest level of the 9 lives profound technique. Chen Taishu and King Ying were both shocked by the Celestial River King's words. If my disciple wins, he will still be my disciple, and you can't take him away. If the little fatty wins, it will depend on his own will, although the chances are very small. I see, Brother Xiao is talking about Chen Tianhe, right? This is something I did not expect. In that case, it will depend on him. However, I don't think it is a real life and death battle between them. After all, after the fusion, it is just a matter of whose mind is dominant. Chen Taishu said. The original worry completely disappeared. Even he did not expect the Celestial River King to be so straightforward. Of course, he also knew that the Celestial River King did not think that his disciple Chen Tianhe would be defeated. You can think of it that way. However, independent thinking meant 2 lives. This is also the biggest flaw of the 9 lives profound technique. Otherwise, the 9 lives profound technique would be perfect. Celestial River King said, Brother Li is amazing. What a strong invincible sword momentum. I didn't expect Brother Li to be a sword genius. In my opinion, this evaluation ranking obviously underestimated Brother Li's powerful battle strength. Yes, it is absolutely underestimated. Not to mention the top 1,000, even the top 100, I feel that Brother Li can easily win. Several cultivators with the number of seeded contestants flashing between their eyebrows said to Chen Hao. No one dared to challenge. They had seen Chen Hao's terrifying sword. At this moment, they were not flattering, but admiring from the bottom of their hearts. In their view, the strength shown by Li Yuan's sword definitely had the hope of reaching the top 100, or even higher. Moreover, this evaluation was based on the situation of this competition. If it was in the previous competitions, it was not impossible to reach the top 10. Chapter 14:11. You flatter me. It's a pity. Sigh, I didn't expect that my unintentional words would hit him where it hurts. Otherwise, he would have no problem passing the round. Brother Li, you don't have to worry about it. Everyone can see that you really didn't know about it, and you tried your best to salvage the situation. Don't worry, the disciples of the Shao family of the Galaxy King also abide by the rules of the competition. Moreover, the Shao family has never favored their disciples. Otherwise, if the Shao family really said so, how could the disciples of the Shao family be a match for them? Then there would be no need to talk about training. That's right. Brother Li, you must have been in the Immortal Emperor realm for too short a time. In fact, for all the disciples of the big families and forces, as long as they are within the rules and under fair conditions, even if they are killed, the forces behind them will not do anything. This is also for the long-term growth of their young disciples. Is that so? Then I worry too much. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. Boom, boom, boom. Every area of the group was in a terrifying battle. As time passed, the vast and boundless space continued to collapse and shrink. Some cultivators who wanted to rely on their speed and body movement techniques to drift away from the battle had less and less space to move. The cultivators also became denser and denser. If they wanted to continue to stay inside, they had to fight. Only by constantly eliminating opponents could the cultivators maintain their strongest state and survive the next challenge. This was a chaotic yet orderly and cruel battle. It was not only a test of one's combat power, but also one's foresight in choosing opponents. However, the further one went, the more important one's combat power was, and the less use one's foresight could play. However, all of this had nothing to do with Chen Hao. As the first seeded contestant in the group, who had eliminated the second seeded contestant, Xiao Manyun, with one sword move, who would dare to provoke him? It was no different from courting death. You can't even withstand a single blow. All of you, come at me together. Boom, boom. At this time, countless onlookers once again began to watch the exciting battles. The battle of the Immortal Realm Space Lock also moved away from Chen Hao and shifted to more exciting battles. Almost every group had some powerhouses who were not seeded players but who could fight against 100 alone. Moreover, as time passed, the space for each group competition became smaller and smaller. When the number of people decreased, almost every group had powerful cultivators who brazenly began to attack the seeded contestants with the number mark between their eyebrows. This had happened in previous years as well, but out of 1,000 groups, it would be considered good if 10 groups appeared. After all, there were only 10 seeded players, and only 100 could qualify. There was no need to take the risk. But now, it was the other way around. Out of 1,000 groups, it was already considered good if there were 10 teams that didn't provoke the seeded players. Such a situation proved one thing. There were too many nameless players in this year's tournament. When the number of nameless players decreased, they must have felt that the seeded players were not necessarily stronger than the others. That was why they did this. The truth was indeed so. Arrogance naturally had the right to be arrogant. After the preliminary round ended, many seeded contestants who were ranked at the bottom were eliminated. On average, there were as many as 3 contestants in each group. There are too many nameless players who have appeared. This year's individual competition will undoubtedly be very, very exciting. Those who can enter the top 100 most likely have the ability to compete for the top 3 in previous years. Indeed, it's beyond expectations by too much. More than 3,000 seeded contestants have been eliminated. It's really unbelievable. I think the experts who suddenly appeared are not only newcomers who have just appeared, but they have also concealed their aura. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a huge discrepancy in the rankings. It's really exciting. I wonder who will be the champion of this year's individual competition. We can only watch. It's impossible to estimate now. Who knows how many more experts have hidden their strength? However, we can see some clues in the following matches. After the preliminary round ended, after seeing the statistical results, the entire cultivation world was abuzz with discussion. They felt that it was unbelievable. Even though they had long known that this year's tournament would be very strong, they didn't expect it to be to this extent. Some unknown people began to show their talents one after another, and they began to show their outstanding talents. This made this year's individual ranking competition unpredictable. Congratulations to all of you for advancing to the top 100,000. Next, you will be divided into 10 groups, with 10,000 people in each group. The top 100 will still be determined, and there will also be 10 seeded contestants in each group. Now, please immediately enter the 3rd level. The token will be activated automatically, and the competition will begin immediately. After waiting for a short while, the host's voice sounded. Chi. The top 100,000 contestants instantly turned into streaks of flowing light and quickly headed toward the 3rd level's barrier. Buzz. The moment Chen Hao stepped into the 3rd level, the token was activated automatically and directly transported him to the 10th group. Hiss. At the same time, a bright golden light shone between Chen Hao's eyebrows again, and a number appeared. Fuck, it's actually 8? Chen Hao was slightly stunned. He didn't expect to become a seeded contestant again. After all, until now, he hadn't revealed his aura of absolute power that had advanced. He had only revealed his strongest sword principal realm. It should be because I defeated Xiao Manyun with 1 sword that my evaluation result is slightly higher. Chen Hao shrugged and thought to himself. It wasn't that Chen Hao underestimated himself, but the restriction of absolute power meant that he shouldn't have been a seeded contestant. Being a seeded contestant meant that his evaluation result was in the top 100. What did it mean to be in the top 100 of the Daluo Golden Wonderland in the great world of Xiandi? It was definitely rarer than a phoenix's feather. No, I didn't reveal it during the competition, but the token was always with me. The first evaluation was based on my aura before the special training, but this time, it should be based on my strongest aura after the special training. I was just saying, if this is the case, damn it, I barely made it into the top 100? Chen Hao suddenly felt discontented and felt that it was too big. Was there any hope for him to enter the top 10 with his sword principle? Chen Hao didn't think that other people's evaluations were a portrayal of his true strength. Monstrous geniuses at their level were definitely monstrous geniuses with unparalleled luck. No matter where they went, they would be outstanding. Who didn't have some powerful trump cards? Amazing! The 8th seeded contestant in the 10th group. Good, this is indeed a surprise for me. Dean, this is just within our expectations. It's nothing. Ah? Ruoxian, this isn't your so-called surprise? It's the top 100. Although it's just an evaluation of the top 100, it means that there's a high chance of entering the top 100. Just watch. Rulin said mysteriously. Chapter 1412. No one knew better than Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian how amazing Chen Hao's performance had been under the space-time law for 8 years. Even Ruo Xian, who had always looked down on Ruo Lan for liking Chen Hao, could not help but admire Ruo Lan's unique insight. Of course, even Ruo Lan did not expect Chen Hao to be so abnormal. She favored Chen Hao, but it was not only because of Chen Hao's terrifying talent. It was more because of Chen Hao's eyes that could touch her soul. His dark, deep eyes, or rather, the feeling of 3 lifetimes of expectation and waiting for 3 lifetimes. It was an ethereal but real feeling. Buzz. Just as Chen Hao was feeling overwhelmed, the space shook, and a powerful aura suddenly appeared within his range of senses. It was a powerful but familiar aura. It's her? Chen Hao turned his head slightly and saw a familiar figure. It was a graceful and beautiful figure that seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. It's him? When the owner of the figure saw Chen Hao, she was clearly very surprised. Her beautiful eyes were as sharp as swords, and she did not avoid him at all. Her thin, willowy eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Number 2? Number 8? She's actually only number 2? She's the Sword King's disciple and has the body of a Sword Emperor. The bonus points should be very high. When I saw him previously, his absolute power had clearly skyrocketed. His aura shouldn't be wrong. He shouldn't be ranked so low. Perhaps it's because of his identity. Chen Hao and Miao Xian looked straight at each other. Neither of them evaded nor showed any fear. The way they looked at each other was as if they were looking at an enemy. Unfortunately, in the eyes of others, there was no real enmity. It was a bit like a saying that only enemies would meet. I wonder who's number 1 in the group? Both of them thought at the same time. It can't be Chen Tianhe. If that's the case, he'll be finished if he loses, let alone make it to the top 10 with his sword Dao. It can't be him. However, I hope it's him. The sooner I meet him, the sooner I'll deal with him. Suddenly, Chen Hao and Miao Xian's voices appeared in each other's minds at the same time, causing both of them to be stunned. Please control your state of mind, Miao Xuan said. What words? You looked into my eyes and even took the initiative to meet mine. Why don't you control your state of mind? Chen Hao retorted. If you don't keep an eye on me, why would I keep an eye on a fat, ugly freak like you? Fuck. Don't you know what kind of person I am? Vulgar. A damn fatty is a damn fatty. The two of them glared angrily at each other, arguing in their minds, neither giving way to the other. The effect of the subconscious mind allowed the two's minds to naturally blend together. This was out of their expectations, but it wasn't strange. Firstly, the strength of their subconsciousness was extremely strong. Secondly, under the perverse space-time laws of the Emperor Star Secret Realm, they had been cultivating together for a very long time. If they had been wholeheartedly focused back then, they wouldn't have needed to look at each other and be influenced by their subconsciousness. They would have already become one. This was the reason why Dao companions with similar cultivation realms and strengths were so terrifying. This was true telepathy, a perfect and flawless combination. When Dao companions fought side by side, they could unleash a power greater than 1+1, just like Xiaoman Tian and Feng Hanwei. After Miao Xuan finished speaking, she forcefully cut off the connection between their minds. However, she still stared at Chen Hao without retreating. Buzz. At this moment, the space shook. A cold and familiar aura surprised Chen Hao slightly. Immediately, a look of joy appeared on his face as he turned his head to look. Miao Xuan frowned slightly. She had seen that faint cold aura before when she and her master met Chen Hao before the start of the preliminary round. In her opinion, it was one of the women who stood out in terms of appearance, temperament and aura among Chen Hao's many women. It was also a graceful figure, exuding an aura as cold as the moon. Xiao Wu. Qi. Chen Hao's figure flashed and arrived beside Helian Wuzi. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly grasped Helian Wuzi's small hand. How? Helian Wuzi raised her head and stared into Chen Hao's eyes. Her expression was also slightly excited as she said, I didn't expect to be in the same group as you. There are only 10 groups in total. The chances of you being in the same group as me are still very high, ha. Chen Hao said as he pinched Helian Wuzi's face intimately. When facing one woman, it was always more comfortable than facing all the women together. Hellion Wuzi was the first woman to follow him from the secular world. She even gave up the original body of the endless cycle of reincarnation because of him and chose to be the woman of this life. In Chen Hao's heart, her position was not inferior to any other woman. She was even comparable to Chen Shui, let alone the others. However, Chen Hao could only think about the question of which was more important. He definitely could not show it on the surface. At this moment, facing Hellion Wuzi alone, Chen Hao was much more relaxed. It couldn't be helped. When all the girls were here, Chen Hao's every move could cause jealousy. He couldn't attend to one thing and lose sight of another. When facing her alone, it did not exist. However, at this time, there were more and more cultivators around. Chen Hao was also embarrassed to be too intimate. After all, maybe the celestial realm was broadcasting them live at this moment. That's true. Are you only number 8? The great world of Xiandi is really very strong. Hellion Wuzi said as she looked at the number between Chen Hao's eyebrows. It's just an evaluation. Brother's strength is not something that can be reflected by a number. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said rather arrogantly. In front of his women, this guy had always been narcissistic, confident and shameless. Miao Xian looked at the fatty who was being intimate with Hellion Wuzi and snorted coldly in her heart. She immediately shifted her gaze to the side. Out of sight, out of mind. She was in a bad mood, but even she herself did not understand what was so bad about it. It was just a damn fatty. How could she be jealous of him? But why was she in a bad mood? In her opinion, perhaps it was because the fatty completely ignored Hellion Wuzi when he saw her. Buzz. Group 10. He became the first seeded contestant just like that? An extremely terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the space of the 10th group. The moment this aura appeared, a golden light bloomed between the eyebrows, and a number that shocked the surrounding cultivators appeared. This was a woman. What was even more shocking was that this female cultivator seemed to be talking to herself. It seemed that even she herself did not expect to become the first seeded contestant. Moreover, from her tone, it seemed that she had become the first seeded contestant of the 10th group without revealing her true combat strength. The first seeded contestant of the 10th group was the top 10 experts who had been evaluated. Xiao Manxia. It's actually Xiao Manxia, the second expert of the Xiao family's Daluo Golden Wonderland. Xiao Mantian's biological sister. Waves of exclamations came from the crowd. A few cultivators who were in the same group as Chen Hao on the previous level could not help but look at Chen Hao. Enemies were bound to meet. Fortunately, the first seeded contestant, Xiao Manxia, could not take the initiative to provoke the fatty who was ranked 8th. Otherwise, how could Xiao Manxia not make a move? Chapter 1413. Of course, the premise was that Xiao Manxia knew that Chen Hao had trampled on her brother. However, this was obviously impossible. After all, they were not in the same group previously. Moreover, she had been in the competition and Xiao Manyun had no way of contacting her. However, this did not mean that she would not know. After all, no matter where you went, there would always be some gossipy people. Among the 100 people who had qualified in the same group as Chen Hao, there were still close to 10 who had been assigned to the 10th group like Chen Hao. If they were to snitch, Xiao Manxia would naturally find out. What a coincidence! Xiao Manxia looked around and her eyes suddenly lit up. A powerful aura suddenly bloomed. So powerful! What a terrifying aura! Chi. The people closest to Xiao Manxia all felt their hair stand on end as they activated their minds and protective auras to resist the terrifying aura that Xiao Manxia released. At the same time, they also looked in the direction of Xiao Manxia's gaze. Who else could it be other than Chen Hao, who had the number 8 shining between his eyebrows? Xiao Manxia did not do anything, but her figure suddenly shook and disappeared. When she reappeared in front of everyone, she was already in front of Chen Hao. Teleportation technique? Chen Hao was slightly surprised. One could tell whether a person was an expert the moment they made a move. Not to mention how terrifying Xiao Manxia's aura was, Just the level of the great teleportation technique that she casually used was not inferior to Chen Hao's. Someone betrayed me so quickly? From the discussions around him, he had already heard her name and knew that she was a direct descendant of the Xiao clan. Moreover, she was Xiao Manyun's sister. Therefore, when he saw her beside him, Chen Hao immediately looked at the cultivators who had advanced in the same group as him unhappily. Miao Xian, Li Yuan, what a coincidence. We are actually in the same group. This makes me, the first-seeded contestant, a little unworthy of my name. To Chen Hao and Miao Xian's surprise, Xiao Manxia suddenly revealed a smile and said. However, although her words were modest, that resplendent crystal light and condescending gaze was completely different. Chen Hao was puzzled. Since the other party wasn't here to denounce him, why did he act like he was very familiar with him and even greeted him by name? Miao Xian frowned slightly as a sharp sword intent blossomed from her body. She said indifferently, just a possibility? Maybe. In just an instant, the aura of Miao Xian, who had been staring at Chen Hao, had completely changed. She was just like the Miao Xian that Chen Hao had met for the first time in the Emperor Star's secret realm. Her indifferent voice was filled with aloofness and arrogance. She was like an empress of a generation, and no one dared to question her. Hee. Unfortunately, the powerful Xiao Manxia was not affected at all. She chuckled and said, I would like to fight with you right now. Unfortunately, I am number one. However, even if you challenge me, that would be unfair to you. I don't dare to not give face to the new Sword King. Otherwise, the old ancestor would scold me to death. As for who will be the number one female grand heavenly immortal emperor of this generation, let's talk about it after you enter the top 10. Little fatty, is it okay for me to call you that? Xiao Manxia's tone was also indifferent, but her words were sharp. She even hinted that Miao Xian would only be qualified to compete with her if she entered the top 10. After she finished speaking, she turned to Chen Hao and said without giving Miao Xian a chance. You know me? Chen Hao frowned and asked. Although Xiao Manxia looked at him with a smile and a little curiosity, Chen Hao couldn't help but feel a sense of disgust. It was a sense of disgust that came from his subconscious. Xiao Manxia didn't expect the fatty to not give her any face. She was slightly stunned, and the smile on her face turned cold. She said, I didn't know you before, but don't I know you now? Moreover, I know that you are very strong. Number 8, it shouldn't reflect your true strength at all. You have hidden a lot, right? Even if you are not as good as Chen Tianhe, the difference shouldn't be too big, right? But it doesn't matter. I have nothing to say to you. It's almost a waste of time. Don't you think so? Xiao Manxia's eyes flickered as she stared at Chen Hao. Obviously, she was one of the people who knew about the relationship between Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe. Indeed, she was the second strongest person in the Xiao clan's Daluo Golden Wonderland. Her strength was terrifying, almost on par with the number 1 Xiao Jiuden. Xiao Jiutian was one of the strongest contenders for the championship, and his combat strength was only second to Chen Tianhe. She also had the strength to enter the top 3. Therefore, before the competition began, Starry River Monarch had purposely told her and Xiao Jiutian about Chen Tianhe. He told them that if they encountered Fatty Li Yuan or 7th Anima Chen Qi during the competition, they could only defeat them and not kill them. He wanted them to be left for his favorite disciple, Chen Tianhe. Otherwise, Chen Tianhe would suffer a great loss. You know quite a lot. Chen Hao was slightly surprised, but at the same time, his eyes became cold. He didn't expect Chen Tianhe and the Star River King to have reached the point where they didn't hold back. Of course. My relationship with Tianhe is very good. Whether you're willing or not, it's useless. You're really pitiful. I can only sympathize with you. Is that so? Then you just wait and see. Chen Hao said coldly. He resisted the urge to challenge Xiao Manxia. Why did he hide his aura? It was nothing more than to prepare for the final battle. Chen Tianhe was very strong, especially after integrating with the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th Animus. As for Chen Hao, he had just integrated with the 8th Anima, Chen Riyan. Coupled with Chen Tianhe's growing faith power, Chen Hao couldn't be sure what the final result would be. Therefore, he chose to keep a low profile at this time to avoid exposing too much and allowing the opponent to be more prepared. Wipe my eyes for what? Xiao Manxia, who was speaking complacently, suddenly had a change in expression. Instantly, his aura became several times colder, and the gaze he used to look at Chen Hao became extremely cold. You actually eliminated my little brother? Is that strange? With my strength, it's easy to kill him. Sparing his life is already good enough. Chen Hao was too lazy to pretend and said proudly, "Good. Do you dare to challenge me? You're mine." Just then, Miao Xian, who had been silently watching the two, suddenly said, "Top 10? I'm afraid I won't be able to meet you even if I enter the top 10. Why don't we do it here? He's mine." Suddenly, without any warning or even a trace of energy fluctuation, a figure appeared out of thin air. He was wearing a green robe and had a tall and slender figure. His face was like jade, and the corners of his mouth naturally hooked up in a charming arc, giving people an indescribable sense of carefreeness. Not only the surrounding cultivators, but even Xiao Manxia and Miao Xian were surprised. Little 7, Helian Wuzi cried out in surprise. Chapter 14:14. Chen Hao's seventh anima had unexpectedly met Chen Hao here. Chen Qi stared straight at Chen Hao. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. The battle intent around him soared crazily. His black hair danced wildly, his clothes fluttered, and his incomparably fierce battle intent soared into the sky. The fish that escaped the net, Chen Qi? I can't let Li Yuan fuse with him. If that happens, it will undoubtedly increase the pressure on Chen Tianhe. Although he is very strong, it's better to be safe than sorry. After all, Li Yuan is the main body. I can't underestimate him. Almost instantly, Xiao Manxia confirmed Qin Qi's identity and thought of a possibility. This was not what the Star River King wanted to see, and it was not what she wanted to see either. Chen Tianhe, at first sight, she was attracted by his handsome and arrogant temperament, powerful strength, and talent. Wasn't he the ideal Dao companion she had always dreamed of? She, with her outstanding talent, was the strongest female genius of the Xiao family in the great world of Xiandi. She was on par with Xiao Jidin. In the great world of Xiandi, it was not easy to find a young genius that could catch her eye. This was something that could not be helped. She could only blame her talent for being too strong. Her voice was rare, and her song was too high. How could she find a Dao companion that was compatible with her? She had countless followers, but none of them caught her eye. But the appearance of the handsome and powerful Chen Tianhe had undoubtedly caught her eye. Moreover, the Star River King was also very supportive, so she had nothing to hesitate about. Thinking of this, Xiao Manxia suddenly snorted and said, "Miao Xian, don't get involved. Li Yuan, if you are a man, challenge me. Of course, if you don't have the guts and admit that you are not as good as me, I can let you fight him first. At most, your strength will increase by a little." Xiao Manxia said after careful consideration. She had to admit that this was a rather helpless situation for her. As the top-seeded contestant in the group, she could not take the initiative to provoke and could only passively fight. Therefore, she could only use words to provoke Chen Hao. If the other party did not listen to her, then she had no other way. She did not dare to do anything that went against the rules. Even if he was a direct descendant of the Xiao family, she did not dare to do so. Otherwise, she would face the fate of elimination. "He's mine. You stupid woman, get lost. If you have the guts, why don't you take the initiative to attack me?" "No balls? What do you mean by gutless? I have a lot of seeds. If you need them, I can give you billions of seeds." Chen Hao didn't even look at Xiao Manxia, but his arrogant and unruly ridiculed her, and his gaze was fixed on Chen Hao's main body. Cough cough. After seeing Chen Qi appear, Chen Hao, who had been slightly excited and pleasantly surprised, couldn't help rubbing his chin and coughing twice when he heard Chen Qi's lawless and unscrupulous words. Damn, this is really awesome. Xiao Manxia was, after all, a direct descendant of the Celestial River King. Moreover, she was undoubtedly the most favored junior of the Celestial River King. However, Qin Shi didn't care about her at all. He even dared to tease her about sending her billions of seeds. Regardless of whether others dared or not, Qin Hao himself did not dare to do so. After all, he still had to pull out a tooth from the tiger's mouth. There was no need to make the Celestial River King unhappy at this time. Deity, don't say that you didn't give me a chance to fight. If that's the case, I will never submit to you. You have to believe that my obsession can definitely interfere with you. At the same time, Chen Hao, who was staring at Chen Hao, said to Chen Hao through voice transmission. Chen Qi was different from Chen Hao. He had no one to help him seal the origin link with Chen Hao's main body. If Chen Hao wanted to use the origin to control him, he would be like Chen Ritian, unable to resist. Because of this, Qin Shi had to remind him. He wanted to fight with Lu Hui, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, and the others to know that he, Qin Qi, was not inferior to deity. This was what he wanted to prove the most, and it was also his obsession. But the second round has begun. At this moment, the space suddenly shook violently, and the host's magnificent voice rang out. Sword light suddenly bloomed, and the incomparably fierce sword intent directly enveloped Xiaomanxia. Damn fatty you, deity, are you a fucking idiot? It's obvious that he's provoking you. It's fine that you've become a fatty, but your head has also become a pig's head? How? Miao Xian, Qin Qi, and Helian Wuzi exclaimed at the same time. It was just that the words they said were not the same. Miao Xian was angry. She did not expect Fatty to be so ignorant. She had decided to help him, but Fatty did not appreciate it, and instantly took the initiative to provoke Xiao Manxia faster than her. Was he not courting death? Xiao Manxia's evaluation score was higher than hers, and naturally, she had her strong points. Even she could not guarantee that she would win. However, Fatty actually fell for his provocation. Qin Shi even scolded directly. Deity's actions were too stupid. In his opinion, Fatty was an idiot with an empty head, full of water. Only Helian Wuzi was surprised. She did not blame Chen Hao for being reckless. In her opinion, since Chen Hao did this, he naturally had his reasons. You don't have to care about me, I'll decide my own matters. Chen Hao said to Miao Xian through telepathy, not at all grateful. At the same time, he roared at Qin Qi, you're the idiot, pighead, I'll do whatever I want. How can a woman provoke a man's dignity? Fuck. Fuck your sister. Fuck your sister, just you wait after I deal with her, I'll give you a chance to have a fair fight. I'm afraid you'll be fucking dealt with. Bullshit. So smelly, tisk. Tisk your sister. Boom boom boom. TSK. Rumble, the competition had clearly already begun, yet the 10,000+ cultivators in the 10th group area where Chen Hao was at were dumbstruck. All of them had forgotten that the competition had begun, and they formed a circle as they watched the 8th-ranked expert, Li Yuan, brazenly challenge the number 1 golden immortal realm genius of the Shao clan, Xiaomanxia. As they listened to Fatty and Qin Qi's vulgar curses, they simply didn't dare believe this was real. Strong. The only feeling they had was that they were strong. Li Yuan and Xiaomanxia were strong, but as for who was stronger, no one could tell in a short time. But one thing was for sure, the strength that Li Yuan erupted with made the few seated contestants in front of him blush with shame. There was probably no problem for him to be ranked third. As for who was stronger between Fatty, Miao Xian, and Xiaomanxia, it was not something that everyone could determine. Only after a real battle would the result be known. His combat skill is actually so powerful? Xiaomanxia was extremely surprised. Fatty fell for her provocation so easily, which made her very excited. Her goal was very simple, not to kill Chen Hao, nor to win against Chen Hao. She only wanted to rely on her own strength to trap Chen Hao. She was the top-seeded contestant, so even if she did not go all out in the battle, it was not against the rules. She only had one goal, to make Chen Hao unable to fuse with Qin Qi. That would be considered as helping her Dao companion, Chen Tianhe. Chapter 14-15. However, when the battle started, Xiao Manxia was shocked to find that the fatty, who was not very strong in terms of absolute strength, was able to use battle techniques to an unimaginable level. His combination of divine ability laws and ancient martial arts had reached the point of perfection. She was unable to control the situation for a while. No wonder Chen Tianhe was so cautious. He didn't hesitate to use his connections to fuse a few lives in the group battle. Otherwise, he might really be in danger. However, this is also good. It doesn't matter if we are evenly matched until the end. Xiao Manxia thought to herself. Her absolute advantage in terms of strength made her very confident. She believed that she would have no problem keeping Chen Hao busy, but Xiao Manxia suddenly realized that the surrounding cultivators had no intention of starting the competition. They were just looking at her and Fatty. One had to know that there was no time limit. If everyone did not start the competition, the cultivators would not be eliminated. If they were not eliminated until there were only 100 people left, their group's competition would not end. How could this be? What are you looking at? The battle has started. Are you idiots? If anyone keeps looking, don't blame me for being rude. Xiao Manxia immediately scolded. What? The crowd dispersed. Only then did they realize that the battle had started. Boom boom boom, chi-chi-chi. The battle finally broke out. How can this be? How can this be? It's over, it's over. Outside the barrier, in Group 10 spectator area, Cheng Wanxiang's face was conflicted. His previously high-spirited expression was now extremely gloomy. He was filled with worry and disappointment as he watched the battle in Group 10. Xiao Manxia. At this moment, even Ruo Lan and Ruo Xian, who were very confident in Chen Hao, frowned as they stared at Xiao Manxia in the battle. Xiao family Xiao Manxia, the most dazzling genius of the Xiao family in the past 10,000 years. Her name was already known throughout the world. She was much more famous than Xiao Mantian. She was someone who had the potential to enter the top 3. After all, although she was ranked 10th, she was a direct descendant of the Xiao family. The Xiao family's inherited techniques were so powerful that no one in the great world of Xiandi could compare to them. However, Chen Hao, who was ranked 8th in the group, was actually fighting with Xiao Manxia, who was ranked 1st. This made them confused and worried at the same time. However, the two of them were not worried that Chen Hao would be eliminated. Could it be that someone told Xiao Manxia that Fatty eliminated her brother Xiao Manyun? Even if that's the case, the initiative should be in the hands of the Fatty. It must be Xiao Manxia's provocation, right? Fatty is very smart. How could he be provoked? That's right, that's the strange part. After all, the reason why he restrained his aura was to conceal his true strength in preparation for the upcoming battle. Now, let's not even talk about whether he can defeat the powerful Xiao Manxia. Even if he can, he will be exposed. No matter what, he shouldn't fight. Is that Fatty's 7th anima, Qin-Chi? Ruolin suddenly saw a figure standing proudly within the raging energy. What shocked Ruolan even more was that the figure was madly devouring the raging energy. At the same time, there was a huge fluctuation in the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, which was converging toward the figure. 7th brother. At this moment, Chen Nan and the others also saw Qin-Chi standing proudly amidst the raging energy. Yes, Teacher Ruolin. That's Big Brother's 7th anima, Qin-Chi. What an abnormal guy. He can actually have an epiphany while watching the battle? Ruolin and Ruo Xian were shocked. The unobstructed transmission of aura from the barrier allowed the two of them to clearly lock onto Qin-Chi's aura. It's not strange. 7th brother is my big brother's 1st anima. Epiphany is a common occurrence for him. It can happen at any time. His strength is probably not much weaker than my big brother's. Moreover, since he met my big brother here, he must want to fight my big brother. Chen Nan said. I know what's going on. Ruo Xian, who seemed to be lost in thought, suddenly understood after hearing Chen Nan's words. Xian, what's going on? Complete anima and occasional epiphany. In other words, unless Qin-Chi reaches the level of Fatty's main body, his cultivation speed will always be at a rapid pace. This is the complete connection of the origin. Even if Fatty and Qin-Chi are in 2 different worlds, they can't isolate this mysterious influence. Could this be the highest level of the 9 anima arcane technique? It must be. Furthermore, Fatty has discovered it. And at this time, Fatty must know that he can't control Chen-Chi through the origin. And Chen-Chi wants to have a showdown with him to prove himself. There's another point. It's very likely that Chen-Chi's strength is stronger than Xiaomanxia. In this case, Fatty will choose to fight with Xiaomanxia first. That's not right. What does this have to do with Xiaomanxia? Fatty can totally fight with Chen-Chi first. Since it's 9 animus, no matter the result, he will be stronger after the fusion. Rulin was puzzled. But Fatty hopes to be stronger after the fusion. You see, he's completely used his strongest combat skills and Dao Law. The only thing he's keeping is absolute power. I can be sure that he's deliberately showing it to Chen-Chi. And Chen-Chi stepped into the epiphany so quickly at this time. Furthermore, it's while watching the battle. This proves this point even more. Ruo Xian said in a deep voice. That's possible. Xian, I find that you're getting smarter and smarter. What are you saying? I'm smarter than you, okay? Moreover, I'm proficient in cough. I'm familiar with the 9 animus spell. Ruo Xian's expression changed slightly. Fortunately, Rulin didn't seem to notice. She curled her lips and stared at Ruo Xian, saying, "If you're not proud, we're still good sisters." All right. Because Chen Hao took the initiative to provoke Xiaomanxia, Group 10 became the target of most of the cultivators again. At the same time, they also became the target of the celestial realm. However, this time, Li Yuan and Xiaomanxia from the Xiao clan were not the only ones who attracted everyone's attention. Qin-Chi, who was in a state of enlightenment, and Miao Xian, who had merged with heaven and earth like a sword, and Helian Wuzi, who was standing near Miao Xian and surrounded by chaotic celestial light, and no one dared to provoke her. There was no doubt that Qin-Chi, Miao Xian, and Helian Wuzi were powerful. The fact that they could stand near Chen Hao and Xiaomanxia without fear of the raging energy turbulence and the terrifying pressure of the fighting spirit was enough to prove their strength. At this time, who would dare to challenge them? In the celestial realm, Chen Hao and the other two were excited to see their son become the focus of attention again. However, the terrifying battle between the two made them worry for Chen Hao. They were especially worried when they heard the surrounding people's comments about Xiaomanxia. Fortunately, Chen Hao, who seemed to be weak in terms of absolute power, didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all with his terrifying combat skills. Chapter 14-16. On the rostrum. He's actually fighting with Xiao Xia? After the competition officially began, the Celestial River King and other top figures of the immortal Emperor Great Thousand World used their extremely powerful spiritual senses to directly envelop the 10 groups, sensing the battles within. The Celestial River King was slightly surprised as soon as the competition began. What's going on? Little Fatty is challenging the top seed? Chen Taishu was also surprised and thought to himself, strange, little Fatty doesn't seem like an impulsive person. As for the specific reason, they did not know. After all, they had only sent out their divine senses to investigate when the competition officially began. However, Chen Taishu did not say much to the Star River King. After all, they had already made it clear in the matter between Fatty and Chen Tianhe that this battle would not affect anything. Good. Wonderful. Hey, Big Fatty Li Yuan's sword skills and ancient martial arts are combined so perfectly. Amazing. As expected of the guy with the best comprehension ability, Little Fatty's comprehension of sword skills has also reached the minute subtlety realm. A true genius. It seems that his evaluation ranking is much lower. Even if he is not as good as Xiaomanxia, he should not be too far off. It's a pity that the two of them are fighting. Yes, it's a pity. I hope they can last until the end. As long as there is no winner, it will not affect both of them. The old man on the rostrum also discussed at this time. There were only 10 groups in this round. The top seed of any group was evaluated to be in the top 10. However, someone dared to provoke them, which naturally attracted everyone's attention. Epiphany. He can actually achieve epiphany. And in such a short time. Xiao Manxia, who was in the middle of the battle, was extremely shocked after discovering Qin Chi's fluctuations. At the golden immortal realm of the great all-embracing heaven, even for a top genius like her, epiphany was something that could only be encountered by chance. However, Qin Chi had only watched her battle with Fatty, and in such a short time, he had actually stepped into the state of epiphany. What shocked her even more was that at such a close distance, the raging energy turbulence, the aftermath of the Tao Law, and the terrifying explosion did not affect Qin Chi at all. Instead, he could crazily devour the chaotic energy. This was simply inconceivable. Furthermore, as the battle continued, Xiao Manxia discovered something that made her feel even more terrified. Li Yuan, who was clearly in a state of intense battle, actually didn't feel the slightest bit of exhaustion. With such astonishing recovery ability, Xiao Manxia could no longer remain calm. This won't do. If this goes on, I'm afraid I'll be defeated by him as my energy is depleted. That was absolutely unacceptable. This year's ranking competition is my last time participating. No matter what, I have to truly step into the top 10. I absolutely cannot lose. Xiao Manxia pondered. Then I can only defeat him as quickly as possible. It had to be said that Xiao Manxia felt like she was riding a tiger. She really did not expect the fatty to be so strong. His combat skills and recovery speed could be described as abnormal. If she continued in this state, she would be tortured to death by fatty. That was something she could not accept. She could only choose to defeat the fatty quickly. Although this went against the Celestial River King's intentions, at this point, she had no other choice. She could not allow herself to be eliminated, right? I didn't expect your strength to exceed my expectations. Unfortunately, the gap in absolute strength cannot be made up for. Alright, it's about time to end it. Take this. Boom. Xiao Manxia's aura suddenly more than doubled. She suddenly shouted and shot out a palm. Suddenly, countless afterimages appeared. In an instant, strands of majestic and terrifying energy spiraled out like strands of milky white silk. They spiraled and intertwined with each other, releasing extremely profound and powerful auras that condensed in front of her. Her aura was extremely terrifying. Heavenly Silkworm 9 transformations. Someone in the crowd suddenly cried out in surprise. Heavenly Silkworm 9 transformations was one of the strongest inherited skills of the Shao clan's direct descendants. It was also the Shao clan's ultimate skill that had not appeared in the Jianghu for countless years. Because it was more difficult to cultivate than the devouring void, many direct descendants of the Shao clan could not comprehend it in their lifetime. The requirements for soul control and comprehension were too high. Heavenly Silkworm 9 transformations, as the name suggested, had a total of 9 levels. Once the skill was used, one would need to control millions of silk-like energy at the same time in an extremely strange and complicated way to condense the corresponding runes. If one did not have a strong soul control, one would not be able to divide one's mind into millions of strands at the same time, let alone precisely control each strand of energy. Similarly, without an abnormal comprehension, one would not be able to comprehend such a complicated rune combination. But one had to admit that once one mastered it, even if it was only the first level, the power would be extremely shocking. Unfortunately, because of its harsh requirements, countless direct descendants of the Shao clan flinched and did not even have the courage to try. This was also the reason why it had not appeared in the cultivation world for many years. It's the almost extinct Heavenly Silkworm 9 transformations? Amazing. Really amazing. I didn't expect that someone in this generation of the Shao clan had finally mastered it. De Hua Li Yuan is going to stop here. What a pity. I really don't know why he provoked Xiao Manxia, who was ranked first in the group. Some of the powerful cultivators in the crowd said. As for Chen Wanxiang, even Ruolin and Ruoxian, who were very confident in Chen Hao, especially Ruoxian, when they saw Xiao Manxia use the Heavenly Silkworm 9 transformations, which was about to lose its inheritor, their hearts thumped and they became nervous. Heavenly Silkworm first transformation. Fierce wind. Xiao Manxia's cold voice resounded through heaven and earth. Her hands, which were full of afterimages, suddenly drew a light screen in front of Chen Hao. In an instant, countless silk-like energy condensed into a huge and complicated rune. Following her loud shout, endless raging winds swept up and suddenly blasted towards Chen Hao. At this moment, Xiao Manxia's forehead blossomed with a crystal-clear light. Strands of light connected with the heavenly silkworm first transformation she had released. Her figure was like a graceful and enchanting spider demon, covered with silk-like energy. Her entire person became extremely terrifying. Heavenly silkworm's second transformation, wind and cloud movement. Rumble. Before the heavenly silkworm first transformation could explode, Xiao Manxia's aura underwent another shocking change. As she released the second transformation, a terrifying explosion immediately sounded. The rune with an even more terrifying aura rapidly condensed again. The energy of heaven and earth was attracted, and the sky changed color. Chen Hao's pupils suddenly shrank as he sensed the terrifying aura. The two streams of energy that came one after another, and they soared several times in power. He could not help but be shocked. For a moment, Chen Hao did not have any way to break through it. It seemed that he could only rely on absolute power to resist. But this was not what Chen Hao wanted. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.